Okay, are we on?
It's over there, it's fine, he's not coming. It's fine.
Thank you.
Which one's Natalie?
Good evening. We call to order at this time the meeting of the Hamilton Wenham Regional School Committee on Thursday, December 21st, 2023 at 7:03 p.m. And at this time, you guys need to call your meeting to order, I guess. Please.
I will call the Hamilton Select Board meeting to order for December 21st at 7:04 p.m.
Thank you. At this point, I'd like to invite all to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
You should do the Pledge of Allegiance at our meeting.
Okay, good evening. Pleased to say that we are here as a joint meeting with the Hamilton Select Board. And our first order of business is to interview and appoint a Hamilton resident to the interim position here on the school committee. I am pleased and honored to say that we had two citizens express interest and submit letters of interest. I am very grateful for both of them to be willing to step up and be here this evening. Thank you for that. I also want to say I was really appreciative that both of our candidates were extremely gracious when we had a little bit of a scheduling glitch. And I appreciated the flexibility that both of you had to be here on, a busy time of year. It's great that you're both here. So the way that we're going to work is I'm actually going to ask the two of you to sit here at the table in front. And thank you. And then I'm going to give each of you an opportunity to just really briefly introduce yourself with a brief opening statement. And then we have some questions that we're going to ask, and I'll make sure that we're alternating so that obviously it's fair, right? That you're alternating, you give a little break, and also that you don't always get the question first or second. In no particular order, why don't we start with Trenton is just listed here first. So could you please introduce yourself and give us a little bit of an opening statement? You do have to put the mic right in front of you and speak right into it so that it gets recorded on the HW cam. Oh, sure. Which, by the way, this meeting is being recorded. Thank you.
I'm Trent Honda. I'm the father of two boys at Miles River Middle School. I've got a long history in higher education as a teacher as well as an administrator. And I'm very interested in joining the board to be able to contribute my knowledge as well as to help guide the education for my children as well as the other 1,600 plus children in the school district.
Thank you. Natalie?
Oh, sure.
And again, make sure you speak right into it. Thank you.
I'm Natalie Hildreth, 121 Linden Street. I moved here 5 years ago, and I graduated from Gordon College, which is kind of like my introduction to Hamilton Wenham. I knew once I had children, I wanted to move back to the area. All the places we love to visit on the weekends, we wanted to make more of a priority in our life, so that's kind of why we came here, plus the train station, because we still commute into the city for work, like a lot of people in Hamilton Wenham. I have two kids at Winthrop, I'm a proud supporter of public education. It's really important to me that we have a strong public school because I truly believe that it is the foundation to our community. In the way that we train children to think, and learn and read and empathize with one another to create citizens in a community. So I've wanted to run for school committee for quite some time, but I have young kids, so I recognize the huge time commitment that you all have, and so that's kind of been holding me back. But you know, this opening was like a way to experience it. I've been watching the meetings since my kids started to attend school, and I follow school committee and select board and planning board meetings closely. I love talking local politics. I'm a bit of a civics nerd. So I thought this would be a great opportunity to get my feet wet and give back to the community. I'm also a volunteer with Friends of Winthrop. I had the landscaping at Winthrop School and did the outdoor courtyard there during COVID and do spring and fall cleanups. So yeah, it's important to me to be a part of the community and really give back to public education and make sure that it is a strong, functional, and sustainable part of our community.
Thank you. Right, and so I think we're going to start with, Natalie, because we started with Trent the first go-around. And I believe, David, you have the first question, is that correct?
Sure.
Okay.
In your opinion, what is the district doing well, and what are some of the challenges that you see? And how would you work on the committee to work through those challenges?
I think the district has done a lot in the last year to improve communications, and I really appreciate that. I think the superintendent, you know, your weekly updates have been really smart and strategic in gaining back trust from the community from the COVID years. I really appreciate that you have focused on having a more equitable elementary experience. It was problematic to me that I came from a competitive and strong urban school environment when we moved here, and there were, we knew that Hamilton Wenham had like good rankings online. But then when we got here and we started to watch the meetings, there was some dysfunction, obviously, and there were buildings that were in need of repair and upgrades. So I think that, there was definitely a loss there that was glaring from what we could have had. But I do appreciate that you have tried to make the elementary schools more equitable in that they're all going off the same curriculum now, and that you're using data to kind of monitor their progress instead of like all the teachers kind of doing their own thing and they all have their own different separate experience and then they're thrown together in the middle school. So I do super appreciate that you've worked more on that. So that's sort of pros and cons. I do think that we do need to focus more on social, emotional development and regulation. I think that that is on all levels a thing that teachers are working with coming out of COVID, and it existed before COVID. So, I think that's something we could focus on more. But yeah, I'm excited about the process that we're going through with the new elementary school, and I think that this is the opportunity to kind of reinvigorate our hopes and dreams and pride in our school. I think we have a lot of pride in athletics and things like that, but we don't have a lot of pride in, arts and foreign language and a variety, and that sort of global perspective that I think is sometimes lacking. And, with the portrait of a graduate and the empathizing and the global citizenship, I think having that new school will be a conduit to kind of facilitate that portrait of a graduate.
Thank you.
Yeah.
David, could you read the question again for Trent, please?
Trent, in your opinion, what is the district doing well, and what are some of the challenges that you see, and how would you work on the committee to work through those challenges?
So at the district level, I think the articulation of clear strategic plan and goals that are well articulated and measurable really sets out the path into the future for the district. And I think that seeing that come to fruition in my time in Hamilton and the beginnings of that implementation has been really remarkable. I would also commend on the communication. I met Eric today for the first time, but I've met Eric 100 times in my email when he updates us on what's happened in the school. And I think that kind of communication is then modeled by all of the principals. I get the same communications from the principals of the schools for my children as well as their teachers. So I think that modeling of excellent communication is something that has really been remarkable. And coming from districts that my children have been in around the country, I see it as really a differentiator in the experience that we've had here. On a parent level, what I see filtering down into my children's experience is the concentration on executive functioning in the classroom. I think has been a really timely way of responding to a need that previously went unmentioned. I would also say that the amount of time, energy, and effort that the teachers put in to meeting students where they are is something that I have experienced time and time again with different teachers in the district, and that tells me that it's a system strength as opposed to an individual teacher strength. Areas in need of improvement or challenges, I think there is definitely a strain around resource and resource allocation that the district is handling. And the contribution that I think that I would bring to that is that's one of the things I do for a living, is I operate large educational budgets in strict constraints and find innovative ways to be able to move forward. And I don't pretend to know nearly what I do about elementary education and high school education as I do about post-secondary education. But I do think that there's analogous situations and analogous information that I might be able to bring an external lens to the discussions on.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and I think, Jen, you have the second question. I think we're going to stick with Trent to allow him to go first this time. Go ahead, Jen.
Hey, Trent, what do you see as the role of the school committee? What are your areas of interest on the committee, and what strengths will you bring to the committee?
Sure. I see the role of the school committee as setting policy and helping to support the superintendent and other leaders within the district to be able to accomplish the goal of educating the students within the district with the best of our ability. And I think that there's different components of that advocacy that occurs. One of the main ones is financial decisions, where resources are going to be allocated, because we all make decisions based upon what is going to be best for the student's education. But oftentimes there's a tension between the available resources and what is the difference between the absolute best and what we can actually deliver, particularly when there's competition for those resources. And so I do think that setting and approving a budget that really understands that these aren't dollars, these are ways that we express value about certain aspects of education is a key component of what the school committee does. Was there another part to that question that I missed?
What are your areas of interest on the committee, and what strengths do you bring to it?
Oh, yes. So I have a large amount of experience in strategic planning and implementing strategic plans. I also have a large amount of experience in managing large budgets, managing construction projects to support, build-outs. And so I think that experience, while not directly in the elementary, middle school, and high school arena, are also going to be valuable in that they are bringing a outside perspective, and particularly one that is informed by the product of what high school education and elementary education produces, having been able to see students at the college level and graduate level, and be able to see them reflect on what was and wasn't important in their education up to and getting into college.
Thank you. Jen, can you read the question for Natalie, please?
Natalie, what do you see as the role of the school committee? What are your areas of interest on the committee, and what strengths do you bring to the committee?
My understanding, the role of the school committee is to hire and evaluate the superintendent, come up with district policy, negotiations, and then approve a budget. I realize that there's a lot of nitty-gritty and minutia that goes into all of that. It sounds kind of simple when I say it like that, but that's my understanding, reading the website and watching the meetings, that is your purview. You're not picking books for the library. You're not getting into the nitty-gritty of the functioning of each and every school, that you're leaving it up to the professionals and the principals and the superintendent. So that's my understanding of the role of the school committee. My interest, was that the second part? Interest in the school committee? So my interest in the school committee and what I could bring to the board is, I've been watching meetings since my youngest started to attend school here, and I am a committed community member that cares and that is a person that has talked to individual school committee members about the budget. I attend town meeting and I think it through, and I ask you all questions when I have them, so that when I attend town meeting to vote, I know what I'm voting on. I don't attend town meeting just for the contentious items. I appreciate, because it was so very new to me moving here from the city, this town meeting and these select boards and Robert's rules, and then I actually got a job working where I had to take a deep dive into Robert's rules because it was all governed by boards, and their meetings were very much like town meetings to make decisions and work with boards. So twofold, I can give you that I've had that experience. I'm versed in Robert's rules, and that I'm a person that lives in the community, and I care about what is decided, because I believe in public education, and even when we disagree, I want us to be able to like talk about it and empathize with one another and at least understand each other's points of views, because, you know, I think that having lived here, I'm not a 20-plus town member. You know, I moved here in 2018, like a lot of people like me who have moved here from the city because we have a train station and we can still commute to our jobs, but we wanted to live in a town where we would go on the weekends, and now we're here. But like, we do still have these high expectations for our kids' schools. And I want to make it work in the public school. And I recognize that we don't have, you know, a robust tax base outside of property taxes, and that we have this huge thing on the docket of a school project that could be funded by the state up to 47%. And that's amazing. And I think it would only bring more people into the community that could add to the community, not detract and take away our resources and all of that. So I think what I can add is that I empathize, I'm a listener, I'm a mediator, and I like to be like diplomatic in listening to people and hearing your viewpoint, but also that like that's the greatness of public education, is that it's the equalizer. We're all from different backgrounds, we all have different families and beliefs, and that we're gonna come together and we're gonna like work it out. So, you know, maybe it's naive and lofty, but that is, you know, my hope for my kids' education here in Hamilton.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, I think, is it, Bill, do you have the next question? Oh, it's you.
No, I'm for.
Sorry.
That's all right.
All right, all right, and so that's going to be to Natalie.
Right.
We're going to start with Natalie.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
In April, the interim appointee will have the option to run for election to continue on the committee. Do you intend to run?
Do I intend to run in April? Oh, okay. Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you want me to read the question again?
No,
Okay.
but the answer is yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think it's mine again.
Okay, to you, Bill.
All right. So,
Oh, and we're going to start with Trent.
Trent, nice to meet you. If appointed, you would be starting during a budget season, so it's the deep end, right? How would you get up to speed on the governmental budgeting process?
So I've gone through all of the websites and the links from where the relevant laws are that govern the different areas that have been discussed at previous town meetings. And so that's been very informative. I would also hope to be able to have the opportunity to learn from my colleagues on the committee and be directed to additional resources so that I could round out my knowledge in that particular area.
Great. Would you like me to read the question again? Sure. So if appointed, you would be starting during the budget season. How would you get caught up to speed on the governmental budgeting process?
Sure. So my background, I realize I haven't spoken at all to my professional background, but my background is a bookkeeper and a database manager and political fundraising. So I do have experience dealing with budgeting and operational and staffing budgets. I've listened to Vinny's presentation for the last 5 years, so and I have called school committee members on the phone to be like, this doesn't make sense. What does the E&D, and so I think I would get up to speed by, doing my homework, going through minutes, and relying on my colleagues. But yeah, budgets don't scare me. I deal with that pretty regularly in my job. And I think Vinny does a really good job at breaking it down.
Indeed, he does.
Yeah.
Well done, Vinny.
Thank
Thank you.
Don't take that mic away.
There you go. All right.
Coming back
Carolyn,
to
go
you.
ahead.
I appreciate that y'all both started talking about communication. That's definitely not Eric. You're over there. So one of the challenges of living in a small community is clear, consistent communication and also breadth and depth of communication, which has been a challenge, I think, across all town boards. Select board certainly faces this. I know the school committee does as well. So when you think about the sort of distribution of information, how could you use your own personal networks or platforms to help distribute information? Or what methods do you see for how we could, in fact, increase engagement and communication across the community?
Okay. So I super appreciate driving the community to websites, such as the town website and the school website. I love that you created a fact page on the school project and, you know, make it as robust as possible, because I definitely don't think social media is where you want to find information that's accurate. So I love that. I would love for the websites to have like fact pages on any sort of like school committee, policy projects, whatever, so that people can be driven there instead of like asking the random questions on the Facebook, because what you get is misinformation and public personal opinion. And then it just spreads like wildfire, in my experience. What was the other part of that question?
How could you use your personal platforms or network to overcome these challenges, or do you see opportunities for meaningful change?
Yeah, so I think leaning into having a more robust fact page, I think, I think that you post the superintendent weekly on the Hamilton Wenham Regional Facebook page, but I'm not sure it gets posted on the town page. That might be helpful. I just know from working in the area with people who don't have kids in school, but they live locally, I've had to fill them in on the school project because they don't get the superintendent weekly, and so I have forwarded it to them when they had questions about stuff. So I just wonder if we're missing a population that's not connected to the school. So maybe posting the superintendent weekly email on the town page, website, but also the Facebook pages. What I can offer to that is that I have a lot of experience in getting out the vote. I have no qualms about knocking on my neighbor's door to let them know, hey, are you aware what's coming up in this local election? Like, this is what's on the table. This is why it's important. Here's the information. Make sure you get out and vote. Local elections are sorely not well attended. I'm an election worker in town, and it's sad how many people don't show up to vote. So yeah, that I would have no qualms being a school committee member that, you know, knocked on I live downtown, and knock on doors and let people know, like, this is what's happening, because there's so many people that don't check the Facebook page. They're unaware. They don't have kids in the district. They're unaware. But then once you make them aware that, like, oh, they're trying to build a new school and we have all this state funding on the line that can help us with a new school, they're very grateful that, like, somebody reached out to them with that information, because it just doesn't reach them. It's old school, but it's 100% effective. So that's what I can add, because I've been doing it since my 20s.
Would you me repeat the question?
If you could, that'd be great.
I'm going to skip the preamble this time.
Okay.
It was a good preamble. I'm not. How would or could you use your personal or professional platforms and network to overcome the challenge of communication, and where or how do you see opportunities for meaningful change?
Sure. So I think that my perspective is going to be a minority perspective because I have really appreciated the communication via email, but I'm also a college professor in my 40s, and there's probably very few people in that little niche that really rely on email as much as I do. So I think that the way that I would move forward with communication is by getting representatives from the relevant stakeholder groups and asking that question to them, not necessarily to me, because I don't think that my perspective is really a representative one, and I don't think anybody's is, but collecting key informant information from different stakeholder groups, because when we say communication to get information to parents and communication to get information to students at different age levels is going to require very different approaches, and they're going to engage with very different platforms and information. And I think that we want to be targeted about engaging with the group that we're interested in communicating with on the platform that makes most sense for them. And so I think that data, I would advocate meeting goal number 1 by collecting data and being able to tailor a communication plan that meets our stakeholders that we want to get information to and information from where they are.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I guess it's to me here. All right, to Trent. There is a substantial time commitment to being on the school committee. The committee meets as a whole in person twice a month, generally on Thursday nights. Additionally, members serve on at least one subcommittee. And there's a significant time investment in preparing for meetings. Please speak about your ability to commit to this level of participation.
Sure. This is something that I'm personally passionate about. And we have a saying in academia that if you want to get something done, ask somebody who's busy. And that's because everybody goes to them because they see results. And so I'm a busy person. I have a job, I have children, but I always make time for things that I'm passionate about. And my experience with my profession is not one that's 40 hours a week. It's one that is the work that's needed to get the job done, and that's what I would expect to do.
Thank you. Natalie, would you like me to repeat the questions? Please. Sure. There's a substantial time commitment to serving on the school committee. The committee meets as a whole in person twice monthly, usually on Thursday evenings. And additionally, members serve on at least one subcommittee. And there's a significant time investment in preparing for the meetings. Please speak about your ability to commit to this level of participation.
Yeah, I think I wouldn't be sitting here if I didn't think I could commit to it. I like I said previously, I wanted to throw my hat in the ring, and it didn't feel like the right time. And then when this interim position became available, I did it without question, so it seemed like the right time. I'm a full-time working mother of 2, so I am also a busy person. But yeah, the time commitment doesn't frighten me. I'm already watching you guys in these meetings anyways, plus the school board and the planning board, and staying on top of it. So I'm up for it.
Thank you. So that we'll come to the end now of our prepared questions. So as long as everyone is in agreement, I think the last thing we want to ask is just, to both of you, if there's anything that you want to ask or anything that you want to very briefly add to sum up. So I think we just did Natalie, so we'll put that to you, Natalie. If there's anything you feel like that you want to add that you didn't get the opportunity to mention, or if there's anything you want to ask. And then we'll wrap up.
I just forgot to thank you all, because I do realize the time commitment and that it's a huge service to the community, and I'm super appreciative, and I know that you guys give up time from your family and your work, and yeah, I don't think people tell you guys thank you enough, and that's all I have to add. Thank you. So thanks for listening to me.
Thank you.
I have no questions and just appreciate the opportunity to interview.
Thank you. So thank you both very much. Our regional agreement spells out, so it's very clear the way that this process works. It's extraordinarily awkward, but it is clear. So the way that this works, and I can look to everyone. We certainly could, if you wanted to, you could sit back in the chairs, or if you want to. But we are all going to need, everyone is going to need, it's not a secret ballot, it's a public vote. Everyone has to say who they want as a member on the committee at this time. And that's the way it's going to work. Whoever is selected this evening will then need to get sworn in before that person actually becomes a member of the committee. So that won't happen instantaneously. Then you'll need to go, whoever is chosen will need to go to town hall and get sworn in before our next meeting. So I apologize in advance for the awkwardness of having to sit while we vote, but that is, and the last time I did this, it was on Zoom, and so while it was awkward, it was probably less awkward than this.
Different awkward.
It was a different kind of awkward. So I'm going to look to both the school committee and the select board to just ask sort of your thoughts on whether we want to move directly to a vote, or do we want to have a discussion? Does anyone, I'm open to thoughts and suggestions or looks of silence.
No, I am curious if there's a skill set that the school board is looking for, or a need. You know, you're a great board, you do a lot of good work. Is there any type of void or skill set you feel you could use, you know, to complement everything you do today?
It's a great question. Do you have an answer to that?
I mean, this is me as a biologist talking. The more data-driven we can be, the happier I am. But that's just me.
The facts are in the numbers.
Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
About that statement?
Well, I mean, when we talk about the purview of the school committee and then the relativity of data to the purview, where are we not using data and could be more rigorous, and how does that sort of trickle down to the candidates that we're looking at?
Honestly, I think we're getting better at using data every single year. You know, we're using the new DIBELS scores and the MCAT scores, and we're seeing where they match. We're monitoring students and how they are improving or not improving over the course of years. And those are big data sets. And having the ability to analyze those data sets is not a skill set that everybody has. But I think it's one that's extremely important because we are being so data-driven right now. Also, I mean, reading through lines and lines of budget, because I'm on the finance committee, is challenging. And trying to figure out where money goes. I mean, Vinny does an excellent job explaining it, but you still have to have quite a head for numbers.
Okay.
I'm going to jump in and answer differently, but not in dissent, but just differently in that for me, which is not an answer to the data, but to the first about what you're looking for. For me, I'm I'm really interested in looking at people that can understand and appreciate nuance, and because the easy questions are easy.
Yep.
And so for me, I think that's what I'm looking for, is for someone that can appreciate that there are multiple sides of issues, and then is still willing, much like we're doing right now, right? And in the end, still making the hard vote, but being able to see nuance. So, other people have,
I think that's so important, you know, because there are nuances, and being able to listen and not just come in with one opinion and not be able to move, but work as a group.
Yeah.
So, I like that.
all right. Do we feel like there's any, are we ready to, do we want to vote? Do we want to have any more discussion? Sean, you look like you got something to say.
This is always so awkward and tough.
Really? I feel great.
You can agree?
Could you stand in the middle, please? Thank
Yeah,
you.
I'll stand in the middle. Put the lights right on. Now, I just really appreciate both of you throwing your hats in the ring, as I know, and Natalie, who's on a few boards and stuff like that, knows that it is a time commitment, and there's a lot of things that you have to do within your committee, but then there's also outside politics that also have some influence on you in some way or the other. So I really appreciate you stepping up to the plate here, because sometimes it's not an easy thing to do. And I'm kind of torn, because I guess I'll start telling my opinion on who,
Yep.
who I'm
And
kind of leaning towards.
I
and-
should say, I have no problem with
And it's
people prefacing.
I'm having a trouble kind of leaning towards either, I guess, because I think they're both well qualified, and I guess I would say, I don't know. I would say I might lean towards Trent, and the only reason, and not to discount Natalie at all, because Natalie is already involved in boards in town. And for me, that's a really big plus, because it means Natalie's involved and she'll stay involved. And Trent is a new face to me. And so I'm always trying to get new faces in to spread the kind of burden, because, and Trent's phrase that he said is maybe another reason why I'm leaning, because I say that phrase all the time, that's, if you want something done, find somebody that's busy. And I think Natalie is a busy person, like she said, and I think she'll stay involved. Not saying that Trent wouldn't stay involved, but new faces are always good, because when we have boards and committees, and Natalie's a prime example of it, she's on the Affordable Housing Trust, and she would be on the school committee. We have a lot of people that wear many hats in our communities, and so whenever we can involve new people, I tend to try to involve new people. And that's really the only reason I'm leaning towards Trent, even though I think they're both great qualified people. It's just a new face to me. So, sorry, Natalie.
Okay. Can I, is that an actual vote? I'm recording.
so.
Okay. Yep. All right, if you're willing, Jen?
If I could vote for you both, I would.
Yes,
I
agree.
think you both bring important but different skills to the table, which, like I said, I hope you both run in the spring, even if both of you, since we can't keep both of you. I'd love to see you guys run for seats. But I think I've got to go with Trent for now. Again, mostly because of the analytical skills that I would like to see a little bit more of. So,
Thank you. David?
I think I concur with that view. Trent certainly comes with a strong background.
You know
in
what,
that-
can you talk right? I'm having trouble
sorry.
hearing you.
Trent certainly comes with a strong background, looking at his resume in evidence-based thinking, and I think that would be very helpful for some of the issues that we face. So I would vote with Trent.
Amy?
I also want to state, I feel so lucky that we have two awesome candidates to jump in quickly, write your letters, come in, do this really awkward exercise. I'm really grateful that you both came. If we're voting, I'm going to put my vote in for Natalie, just because I know how involved you've been. I've gotten plenty of emails from you as a committee member. And I know you've been watching at home, so I feel like it'd be easy to get you up to speed, and I know some of the skill set that you have will be useful in the committee. Thank you both so much for coming, and definitely everybody run in the spring.
All right, I'm actually going to skip myself, but I actually think I'm awkwardly realizing we're an even number, and so I was going to try to put myself in the most awkward position, but it may not be.
Takes the pressure off of me.
Yeah, I didn't want to do that, so
Less thankful.
so I'm going to skip myself. David?
I just think Trent will have an easier time jumping in with both feet, so Trent.
Okay.
I think what you said resonated with me. But I also know that this is an opportunity, Natalie, that you have had your eye on for such a long time, and the level of commitment that you have put in to preparing for the opportunity to run, I think is really important. I don't know anyone who watches as many board meetings as you do. And I feel as though for that reason, and because I know that there is nobody that has prepared specifically for this as long and as meaningfully as you have, I would like to vote for Natalie.
Okay.
You both can put signs out on my front lawn in April. It's 36 Howard. Thank you for coming in. I love that you said creating citizens. I love that you're actively involved. I'm a finance business guy. I think the skill sets, the data, I think, Trent, you bring a good strategic thinking. I like what you said, Sean, although difficult as it is, it's a new voice to bring into the community, into the thinking process. So I think I'm going to go with Trent. I'm going with Trent.
Okay. And just, I'm not going to let myself off the hook, I am going to say, but just for full disclosure that that's going to be Trent, I think. I want to just say, like everyone, I am very appreciative of you both. I do want to say, because I know everyone else had to, my vote would be for Natalie, really because of what I said earlier about the nuance. I've seen your ability to do that. Natalie has sent a lot of emails. Some of them have not agreed with me, and some of them have. And I appreciate your ability to continue to engage. That being said, I do appreciate, I think a couple people said it, I hope you both run in the spring, which is very soon. So if my official tally is correct, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for Trent and 3 for Natalie, which if we're all in agreement that that is correct, then I've tallied that. Then at this point, Trent would be the choice. I believe, Jen, who's standing in as our secretary, I believe we need to actually have an actual appointment vote, correct? So would you be willing to make that as a motion? It would be.
In the affirmative.
In the affirmative to appoint for Trent as an interim. Yeah.
What's your last name again?
Honda.
Honda?
Yeah.
Okay. I move that we appoint Trent Honda as an interim school committee member.
Do I have a second? Second by David Frankel. So I think, I don't know whether we have to do this separately.
But we can do it together.
We can
I'm
do it
fine
all
with
together.
that. It's
All
a
right.
joint meeting, so.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 And that is unanimous. Trent, welcome to the committee.
Thank you.
Natalie, I want to say thank you, and I really feel that, I can feel it in the room, that everyone is really appreciative of the work that you're continuing to do in town, and we hope to see you back again. Okay. Why don't we take a brief recess? And, you guys actually have
Why
to
don't we
dismiss.
adjourn?
Yeah,
Adjourn. A
yeah, you
motion.
guys have to actually adjourn.
Motion to adjourn the select board meeting?
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, school committee.
Thanks for
Okay,
having
Thanks
us.
for having us.
Thank
Thanks
you.
to both of
Thank
you.
you. And-
Congratulations, welcome.
All right, and we will take just like a 2-minute brief adjourn while we say goodbye to our candidates. All right. Say that, but
Tina, do we have to wait till he's officially appointed to put him on a committee? Because we had to cancel our budget committee today.
we'll
or
put a,
yesterday.
yeah, we do. We'll do it on, but I actually put that on for January 4th at our first meeting. So, yeah, and I'll meet with him so he knows about what committee.
Gumbo, you got it all. Okay.
No, but like, all I could smell was like gumbo.
We'll decide as a
And then,
group on
like,
January 4th. Yeah, because we might shuffle things. Yeah. Okay, we ready?
We ready?
Okay, and we are back in session. All right, at this point on the agenda, we have citizens' comments. Is there, I don't want to presume, but I assume that I'm thinking that there are no one in the room that wants to offer a citizen's comment. Is that correct?
That'll work for us.
Okay. And do we have any citizens on Zoom?
None.
Okay, so at this point, citizens' comments are closed. Okay.
Refreshing.
And now, I think it's Amy? Amy is gonna read a portion of our school committee protocols.
As elected members of the Hamilton-Wenham Regional School Committee, we, including the superintendent, accept the high honor and trust that has been placed in us to ensure that the students of the district receive the best education possible. To that end, we hereby commit to the following in the conduct of our business. Number 3, The school committee will establish a vision, create policy, approve a budget, and assure accountability to sustain continuous improvement in teaching, learning, and facilities. Members agree to leave the day-to-day operations, including business transactions, to the superintendent and staff. Members of the school committee recognize that authority rests only with majority in its decisions.
Thank you. And David Frankel is going to read a portion of the mission statement.
Okay, the Hamilton Wynnum Regional School Committee will lead and inspire a district that is a source of civic pride and municipal engagement to serve the community for generations to come.
Thank you.
I actually think I figured out why we can have, you're like at the same pitch as the.
Oh, is that a little humming?
The AC.
So I'm like, I never have a hard
Can't
time
hear
hearing
anything.
it, so.
I'd have to move it down or up a register.
Exactly. Yeah, next time try it with a
Can't hear
very
it in the
low
stroll.
voice.
My bass.
Oh, that's funny. Next up is the consent agenda. Does anyone have any items they'd like to hold from the consent agenda? No. Jen, would you make a motion? Are you willing to make a motion?
I move that we accept the consent agenda as written.
Second.
Second by Amy Kumberger. All those in favor? And that is unanimous of the members present, and the motion passes. I guess maybe I should have held it, or I just wanted to for transparency's sake, I did want to note for the school committee and if any members of the public that when originally posted, there was an error in the exhibit under the field trip, and Amy did notice that there was an additional information, which is a potential grant that will be on a future agenda. So just to acknowledge that that was there for a brief moment, if anyone wondered where it went. Okay. I think Mr. Menegoni is going to present some information about the program of studies for 24-25.
Good evening, everyone. And I'm here tonight to talk about the substantive changes to our program of studies for the 2024 and 2025 school year. I did provide you with a summary of the substantive changes, which really include new courses or courses that we're cutting out. I did notice that there is one course that I should have listed in here. It's an additional course. I will describe it as I'm going through each one of these. It's an art course. It's a new course for the 24-25 school year. And then certainly once I'm done, happy to answer any questions that you have. First change that I wanted to highlight has to do with dual enrollment, and that's on page 6 in the program of studies draft that we provided to you. And dual enrollment is an option for our students to take courses at local partner colleges where they would receive not only credit with us towards graduation, but also college credit, which can then be applied to whatever post-secondary institution that they choose to attend. Currently, we partner with Salem State University. They offer us some free slots. Kids have been taking advantage of those, but we want to start expanding our dual enrollment options to include Salem State, but also other partner colleges beyond that. And the reason why we highlighted dual enrollment this year is not only that expansion, but also one of the new science courses that we want to offer will have a dual enrollment component to it. So that's the first substantive change. Second one, we're adding a new math class this year called Algebra 1 Concepts. The reasoning behind this is that we've noticed kids are coming into high school sometimes missing some critical pre-algebra skills. But the question becomes, how do we help them build those skills while also keeping them with their peers? So in other words, we don't want to create a separate track for math that will start them in pre-algebra and really land them only in Algebra 2 by the time they get to their senior year. Because Algebra 2 is not considered an advanced math course. We don't believe that that's going to prepare them best for post-secondary opportunities. And also, from an accountability perspective, we really need our kids to be taking statistics, pre-calculus, or some kind of calculus course, because that counts as an advanced math course, or those courses count as advanced math courses for accountability purposes. So we need all of our seniors to be in those classes. So really what we're doing in this Algebra 1 concepts is stretching the Algebra 1 course to go from just 2 semesters to actually 3 or a little bit more. And what that addition of time will allow teachers to do is to build the pre-algebra skills while also teaching Algebra 1 concepts to the students. So really what we're doing here is making time the variable as opposed to expectations. So how this is actually going to play out, year 1, students who are taking Algebra 1 concepts will be in that course. Year 2, they'll take a class that has a working title of Geometry Concepts, which probably is going to change, because it's really going to be a continuation of Algebra 1 and the most critical geometry concepts that they'll need for both MCAS and future math study, with the goal of getting all students into Algebra 2 by their junior year, and therefore their senior year they can pick an advanced math course. But we feel strongly that the development of pre-algebra skills early on will help our students be more successful as they move through the math curriculum. We're cutting a course called Advanced Algebra and Trigonometry from the course catalog because it hasn't run in about 7 years. And in the science department, and this is where dual enrollment will come up, we're going to be adding a course called Environmental Science Research Methods. And the rationale behind this was, first of all, we don't have an environmental science course currently at the high school. We have a couple kids every year who take AP Environmental Science, but that's really kind of it. You know, and given what's going on in the world nowadays, I think there's an enhanced focus on the environment. And furthermore, an environmental science class really gives kids a chance to get out of the school and do real scientific research to create knowledge using science, and that's what we want to see our kids doing. Also, the environmental science course will have a dual enrollment option partnered with it. So we're going to be joining up with Southern New Hampshire University to offer this for dual enrollment through them. If a student would like to get Southern New Hampshire's college credit, they can pay a $100 fee to get that credit, and they will actually have a transcript from Southern New Hampshire University where they could transfer those credits later on. We will have one of our faculty members really become almost an adjunct at Southern New Hampshire University, but you know, part of what we'll have to do is also develop this course over the rest of this school year and during the summertime as well, because it is a completely new class. Next change in the art department that I want to highlight. We've kind of always gone back and forth with our elective classes. Some of our elective classes in different departments offer an honors and college prep option for students. So for example, this year we're teaching a law and society class in the social studies department. Kids who are in that class can choose to take it for honors credit or for college prep credit. They're both in the same class. Students are just asked to do slightly different work, different assessments, different projects perhaps, but they're all learning together. In the art department, we never really had the option for honors classes. However, the current school year, Art Portfolio, which is sort of the culminating experience for our visual art students, is an honors class because kids are really creating things on their own with guidance from the teacher, and that's kind of the essence of a college class, is that creation. But also, this in the 24-25 school year, what we want to do are take sort of the second experience art classes that we have. In other words, where you've already had to take a previous art class, and offer students the option to take it for honors or college prep credit. We're not saying that Studio Art 2, for example, is only going to be an honors level class, but rather kids could enter that class and choose to take it for honors or college prep credit. And they would work with the teacher, and I think there's a description in there of exactly what it is that kids need to do when they take it for honors credit. But I think we need to honor the work of the students who have an artistic bent, you know, honor the creation that they put forth in those classes and offer that on a larger scale. That recognition right now, you know, kids who are good artists get recognized sort of outside of the school day. This would allow us to really recognize their work during the school day and also push them a little bit harder if that's sort of where their interests lie. The class that I did not include in the summary, and I apologize for that, but just noticed it this evening as I was scrolling through the program of studies. It's a new art class that's kind of for kids who might not feel that confident in an art classroom, and that happens from time to time. This is called Art Explorations, where students are really going to be able to use a bunch of different things to create as opposed to just drawing or painting, which can sometimes be difficult or maybe even painful for some kids for whom that's never been a really easy thing. So this is just another option for kids to enter the art classroom, but also if they get in there and they feel like they kind of like it, it's another pathway for them to, I think, get involved in the arts. Next substantive change, but going back to the summary, would be the elimination of the mental health awareness through media studies course. We've offered it for a few years, just haven't had enough takers to really run it, so the thought was to just eliminate it from the course catalog. And the last substantive change really has to do with our required 10th grade health and PE course called Wellness for Life. The 24-25 school year will be bringing back human sexual education to Hamilton-Wenham Regional High School. It took a hiatus this year because previously it had been taught in the 9th grade. And we thought that after a lot of conversation that some of those topics may not be developmentally appropriate for 9th grade students, just given sort of the heightened complexity of the conversations that you do have with kids around sexuality in high school. Really, we felt that 9th grade wasn't the year for it. We do feel that 9th grade is the year to talk about substance use and abuse because kids do get introduced to that early on, and that those are choices that they have to make. We want to arm them with the decision-making tools that they're going to need to keep themselves safe and healthy. So the human sexuality curriculum is moving to the 10th grade year, and it's going to start 24-25 so that our current freshmen will get that. Our current sophomores had that last year as 9th graders. Okay, so everybody will have gone through that curriculum by the time they graduate. There definitely is, you know, more community parent awareness around human sexuality curriculum. The same opt-out provision applies, as it always has. And Jessica McGraw, who's our curriculum leader for health and wellness, did provide you the list of the topics that will be investigated in the 10th grade Wellness for Life course when it comes to human sexuality education. The other thing, too, to consider is that finally the state came out with frameworks very recently for health and wellness. And so that course is going to be in flux over the next couple of years. The topics that are investigated in that class will be in flux, and certainly, you know, the standards around human sexuality will be better understood. The state's going to provide more guidance. They're supposed to come out with a model curriculum unit for high school health and wellness, or model curriculum units that certainly we can take advantage of. But we're working a little bit ahead of where the state is at, to be honest with you. So this course will be in flux, but we wanted you to be aware that this is where human sexuality education will begin again next year. So that's what we have for substantive changes for the 24-25 school year, and I welcome any questions that you may have at this time.
Thank you. David?
Yeah, can you talk a little bit more about the mental health awareness through media studies? What was exactly the nature of the...
So that was going to be looking at the impact of the media and just some of the things that kids are seeing and hearing on mental health. It was going to be taught by the school counseling department, and they offered it for a few years. It was just, you'd get 2 or 3 kids that would sign up. Wasn't really enough to run it, and it was, with that few kids, they just weren't even able to get scheduled into it anywhere you tried to put it.
Coincidentally, this month's Scientific American had an extensive article on preempting depression in teens in schools, and programs to kind of, rather than wait till they're suffering from extreme depression, to using cognitive behavioral therapy to really build their resilience. And they did this with group sessions of students of that age. And I think I might have sent along a copy.
Yeah, and a lot of the topics that would have been studied in depth in that particular course, they are visited in the health and wellness classes.
Oh, I see.
Anyways, it's just, this would be probably a deeper dive into that, for a smaller group of kids. But it didn't have enough takers to run.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Jen.
2 questions, actually. So I knew you guys paired with Salem State for your dual enrollment. And the benefit of that, right, is the state of Massachusetts says if you take a course at any of the community colleges or at Salem State, we will allow you to transfer those
Correct.
courses up to the UMass level.
Mhm.
Like, they will be accepted.
Yeah.
Do we have that same guarantee with Southern New Hampshire? That the state schools in Massachusetts will accept them for credit?
I don't think we have that guarantee. Part of the reason why we chose to do this in environmental science course with Southern New Hampshire is that Newburyport High School is doing the same exact class. They've run it for a couple of years, so kind of partnering with Newburyport to learn how to build these during the school day dual enrollment courses, and their partnership with Southern New Hampshire it has been really beneficial to them, and they've helped Newburyport build out additional dual enrollment courses.
Yeah, we
So
just
it's-
might want to check how
yeah.
well their courses transfer, because I just don't know.
Yeah, yep, that probably would depend on each school a little bit.
Yeah. My other question had to do with the changing tracks, I think it was called. So like going from AP to honors, honors to CP. Is there, the way it's defined in here is defined for students going downwards. So from AP to honors, from honors to CP. Is there a way for students to move upwards in the track pathway as well? Because I've heard from several parents who, particularly in mathematics, are frustrated because it seems like their path is set almost in middle school and they can't get out of that path
Yeah.
in high school.
Yeah, so that's not necessarily a question of honors or CP or AP. It's more of,
Right.
when do you take Algebra 1, I guess? Because taking Algebra 1 in 8th grade is what allows you to take calculus by the time you get to be a senior. So they're kind of different questions a little bit. How do you offer students the option to, maybe once they get into high school, to get to calculus if they have to take Algebra 1 their freshman year? And typically what's happened in the past is they might double up in geometry and Algebra 2
Okay.
sophomore year. Not a huge fan of that, for a variety of reasons. What we're going to have to consider, I guess, is, well, we have to ask the question: is there real value in taking calculus in high school? Does everybody have to do that? Is there a learning reason for that? Is there a learning reason for that, or are we using the math class as currency for college to get into college?
I mean, I don't know if there's a learning reason for that, but I know there are parents who want their students to be able to do that.
Oh yeah, definitely. So, doubling up in math one year is an option. Again, I'm not a big fan of that because, you're eating up a whole class on a kid's schedule to take more math when maybe math has not always been the easiest thing in the world for them. And it creates some staffing and scheduling issues along the way. Are there things that we could do as a school district to offer kids an opportunity to accelerate math? I mean, I'm sure they would love to do it during the summer. Could they do it after school hours? Are there other ways to get kids to that point if what they really want, you know, is to take, ultimately, I guess is what it's calculus, you know, their senior year. There are kids who, you know, want to go into engineering and things like that, who that might be really important and who didn't get that chance to take Algebra 1 in 8th grade. You know, those are the kids I would be most focused on, I guess. But I would want to know more community-wide, like why do we want to get to calculus senior year?
Okay. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I got a couple.
Go ahead, Dave.
So I think this is my annual time to, where we start talking about AP as a necessary evil, right? I've always never been a big fan of AP. I think it's you know, a great waste of great minds and great teachers teaching a canned course. But that makes me really happy that, you know, hear that we're expanding that dual enrollment. You know, and in fact, I was actually just talking about it with one of my classes the other day. Excuse me, and I actually got a really great perspective from one of my students. So I'm, you know, obviously over in Beverly, and you know, he's a student athlete and a fantastic student, and he can't take any dual enrollment classes because he can never, since he's an athlete, you know, go and take any courses. So the fact that we're actually looking to bring stuff in, I'm definitely in support of expanding that. You know, and I do love the idea. I think you'll probably find that like SNHU will be just their business model over the past sort of 5 to 10 years is, you know, really expanding out. So you know, I could see a lot of opportunity opening up with them. Excuse me, as far as availability. But you know, the more that we can get actual college courses to, you know, our students that want it, rather than, you know, college equivalent courses that, you know, don't necessarily mean anything once you actually leave the classroom. I'm highly in favor of that. Now, that being said, there's really only one opportunity for any students to take an AP course before 11th grade, right? You have one opportunity, which is AP Computer Science, that is available. You know, I'd like to see, you know, every high school I've worked at before, you know, has always offered a push at the 10th grade level. You know, it seems pretty standard, you know, coming from Salem and now Beverly. You know, Hamilton being the school that it is, our students being as competitive as they are, I think, you know, looking to expand opportunities, you know, for some AP courses, I think will be really beneficial. I think it'll be really popular too. So it's something we might look into moving forward. Excuse me. And then this is also my annual of we should be introducing AP Art at the high school too. You know, I was able to, you know, teach 3 different AP art courses at the same time as a CP course, just because they are pretty self-sufficient, and it does work like a portfolio course. You know, and I do think there'd be a large interest, I think, from not only students who would be looking to enter the arts after school, but also students who want to bolster AP courses. You know, when I was in Salem, I had a couple students that were trying to get into Ivy League schools, and having those extra AP courses, you know, on there really meant something to them. So it was fun. It was actually really fun trying to get those guys through the course too, because they weren't your standard, you know, high-level art, but they did fantastic, you know, and they ended up scoring, I think, 4s on the exam. So you know, it was great. You know, and that sort of leads me to this second part of, you know, we need to be bolstering our arts program. You know, I went to, in the past week, you know, went to the high school, you know, winter concert, and there was about this many people in the room. And, you know, then I went to the middle school arts concert where, you couldn't even get a seat the other day. And I think there's a huge problem when we get to the high school level. Our concert bands and our concert choirs are, scarcely populated because of scheduling. We have all these students that want to take all these elective courses, and band and, chorus don't allow them to. Chorus has this, you're allowed to take chorale. You can't get the credit for it, but you can take chorale and not have to meet in school. So our chorale, which is our select, voice program, is probably about 3 times the size of our concert choir, and I think that's something that we should really be looking to address to really round out the education of our students here. Because I think at the high school, at the middle school level, we have these great, big, huge bands and choirs and, these opportunities of kids that just really want to, be involved in all that. And then it just dwindles down at the high school level, and it's sad because, obviously you have the same great teachers, and it's not that, and, I just hear it again and again, because my kids, my nieces, nephews are all involved, and it really comes down to a schedule, excuse me, a scheduling problem, but that's something I'd really like us to really start looking to in the future, and how we can sort of try and solve that problem and bolster our arts program.
Yeah. So you brought up a couple of good points there, talking about AP courses, and as we've increased the number of AP offerings, that's when we started to see a little bit of a decline in kids who could take band or chorus, for example. It just, sometimes those things run into each other, and a lot of times kids don't want to take one AP class, they're taking 3 or 4, and it just, something's got to give at some point. I do know that, I hate going back to this, but COVID did have an effect on band and chorus size. And talking to Eric Fecky the other day, he's like, this is sort of like the last of my COVID groups, and in middle school now, there's band kids all over the place, which is what we want to see. So I would expect our high school band numbers to increase. And we also still need to confront the reality of we've got to keep more of our kids here. How many of the kids that are going to private schools or the tech would have been kids in the band, chorus, or taking any of our other art classes as well. So there's a lot of stuff going on there. I think we have good programming. It's just figuring out a way to get keep the kids here and get them into the programming that they want.
I'm really happy to hear that, whenever I have sort of these thoughts and I, speak to Eric, or if I happen to say something to you in passing, and you're like, oh yeah, we're already thinking about that and talking about that, it always makes me so happy. I know, Rome obviously wasn't built in a day, but you guys are really consistently looking to make the best offerings you can and try to make our little school and small district really work and offer as much as you can. That this course book is, as dense as a college catalog, and that's wonderful that we can, offer all these opportunities and are always looking to expand. So I really appreciate that, and that you guys are really already looking to how we can make it even better next year. So I appreciate everything you do.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Can I say something?
Yeah, of course.
I think it's important for the committee members to know that the transition for the high school, and Brian and I have talked about this a lot. Brian talks about it with his curriculum leaders, talks about it with his building leadership team, now has Jen Clifford involved at the secondary level. The dynamics at the high school are fascinating when you start to look at the offerings and you say, oh, what does Manchester Essex have, or this one have, or that one have? Everybody compares us to somebody else. There aren't really a lot of differences. So it's been fascinating for us to see this shift, and I think some of the moves that the high school staff has decided to make start to make us a little more competitive, a little more opportunistic for kids that may want to do something different, like the dual enrollment option. If you can expand that in the right areas, you're going to attract a certain level of student who, instead of going off to a private school or to the tech, will say, geez, I want to stay there because I can get this college credit, which, as we know, AP course is no longer really guaranteed. I've seen kids go out with 5 and 6 AP courses and have 0 accepted at whatever college they choose, and that's a difficult pill to swallow for some people. So the AP allure is is kind of losing its luster. And I think the bigger piece for us now is to figure out what can we do differently with the times that we have, both inside and outside of school. You know, when you're looking at the arts, when you're looking at even things like computer science, which it's always fascinated me that our numbers in computer science are really low. They always have been consistently. When I was principal, Brian was been here longer than I have. Computer science numbers never take off, and then you can go to the next door school district and they have 75 kids in their computer science program. So those dynamics are interesting for us.
Computer science courses.
Yeah, so that's the interesting dynamic that we play around with. Yet they found the niche at the high school in the robotics program. Now kids are like, okay, let's line up for robotics. We want to do that. So it's really trying to find those niche opportunities, especially at the secondary level. You know, we're doing the same thing at the middle school. Like, what other things can we offer in the middle school spectrum that gives kids different opportunities? There are lots of arts and theater at the middle school level, but there's really no hands-on opportunities, nothing like robotics or technology education or anything like that. So, you know, these are things that we're actively talking about within our schools, re-reviewing our math program all the way through, trying to figure out what makes the best sense, because as Jen talked about, you kind of get locked in. We want to get away from that and start to give kids that flexibility. So there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes, and really kudos to Brian and his staff, and, you know, Zach Best and his staff, and our, you know, everybody knows the work our elementary people have done. So there's a ton going on.
The question, what do you think the root cause is of the lack of computer science enrollment? That seems really...
I bet you it's time.
Really?
There's only so many things you can do in a day.
And a lot
I've
of them
been-
go into robotics because that combines the engineering and the programming.
Yeah,
So they get both at the same time.
it's more hands-on too, yeah.
Yeah, my daughter's very kinesthetic and she loves her robotics course.
I mean, the thing that helps robotics is that it's a high-interest course, so you got a lot of kids signing up for it. You can run a couple of sections each semester, and it's just easier for kids to drop in when you have more sections of it. You only have one section of a class, it's like, okay, I hope you get in. As much as you try to move that around while you're making the schedule, just it's more difficult. You know, we have kids that want to do a lot of different things, which is great, but, you know, in a small school setting, it can be challenging sometimes to get them all of the things that they really want to do. Thank you.
Okay. I believe we need a vote. Yep. So I think you've got the motion there, or do we need to help craft it?
No, just to
It's
approve,
to approve the
this.
changes.
Yeah,
The
approve.
changes in the high school handbook as presented.
Do we just call it the high school handbook?
Program of studies,
Thank you.
sorry.
There we go.
24, 25 program of
Yeah,
studies
program
as
of studies.
presented would
I
work.
move that we accept the 2024-2025 program of study changes as presented.
Second.
Second by David Polito. Is there any further discussion?
Great work. Keep it up.
Okay. All those in favor? And that is unanimous of the members present, and the motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
There are 5 of us, correct. Okay. And now we're going to hear some budget presentations. I think, Alan, you're going to start us off?
I believe so.
Yep.
Okay.
I will
I got the point, I got the finger.
do the lead here. Just annually, we bring in our managers in each of the kind of meetings leading up to our tentative budget vote. The places where we've seen the most changes or most shifts have been, the 4 places are 3 that you'll see tonight: technology, maintenance, and athletics, and then 1 you'll see on the 4th, which is a special ed. It's a little more substantial presentation. So we have here tonight Alan Topier. He is our Director of Information Technology in the district. He has put together a presentation to go through some of the budget highlights and some of the things that he wants to make sure you understand about his department. So Alan, take it away. He's going to fine tune all my settings, then leave, and I won't be able to fix it.
want it to be like, but we'll do this anyways. All right, so thank you for having me. I'm just going to go quickly over what we do, why we do it, a project we've been working on for a couple of years that I haven't had a chance to actually talk to you about, and myself, and where we're going with our budget, and review what's going to happen next. So I always start off every budget season by looking at this Venn diagram. I created it 19 years ago, and I look at it and I rethink what it means to me, and whether it still holds water. So, you know, I think that without those three pillars, you really can't have a good user experience. So, it's hard for me without my little notes here. All right, so next, what the role of the IT department is. We provide business continuity services, technical assistance, and back office system maintenance. The second thing we do is support district integration of technology and teaching, learning, and business operations. Invest in proven technologies that offer stable, resilient, cost-effective equipment and services. If that's what we believe our role is what we're focusing on. We're focusing on deploying resilient platforms. So putting quality equipment in teachers' hands, usable and high-end equipment in our students' hands, having a quality backbone that is up and running, you know, all the time. We also had adapt to changes. So in the last 4 years, it's been a lot of changes for IT. We've gone from being, you know, an ancillary factor in the classrooms to being a primary factor in the classrooms, in the sense that there's a lot more technology happening every day in every classroom. We have devices one-to-one all the way down to second grade at this point. We also leverage technology for teaching and learning and business operations. I think this is how we respond. You know, people ask us to do things. We need to move our CRM from our in-house servers to the cloud last year. We did that. Earlier this week, we were asked to move from Renaissance, which we use for college placements, to SCORE. Found out on Friday. We're completely done with the transfer today on the IT side, so it's up and running. We're leveraging SSO, Clever, a number of different technologies to help smooth that transition so that people can move quickly from one thing to another thing. So device deployment and redeployment. We use our devices. It's not everything's brand new every year. We have a life cycle management process we go through, and this requires us to repurpose 300 plus iPads, Chromebooks, and laptops every year. We've this year deployed 63 new MacBook Airs to the Bucher and Cutler teachers, 136 new Chromebooks to Miles River 6th graders, 128 iPads to middle school 7th graders, 70 additional iPads to the elementary schools. We're poised to begin our second round of interactive display deployments at the middle school and tackle deployments at Cutler and Winthrop, and also planning for our next round. We're right on the edge of ready to start that deployment for Cutler, Winthrop, and middle school. So the AV project. So every classroom has a projector and a surface to project on. Most of those surfaces are interactive interactive surfaces. That room comes with a sound system. It's a focal point for displaying the teacher's computer and having interactivity with that space. These systems have been up for more than 10 years. They were here when I got here. All we did was maintain them while we were here. But to start the project, I didn't want to just jump in and make a decision, so we we did a survey starting in 2021. We surveyed all the staff, all the faculty, and asked them, what do they think? How's it going with their current systems? What do they like about them? What they don't like about them? Are they important? Are they not important? That survey information came back. We gathered a focus group of teachers and IT staff. We collated that information, came away with some key points that we thought were important to the new AV systems, and then we set out about interviewing a number of different vendors or solution providers. After every demonstration of these different systems, we surveyed the focus group, asked if they wanted to see any more, and when they said they didn't want to see any more, we stopped, came back, and we asked, what should we do now? And the coming away was that we needed to do a pilot. So we did a pilot of 2 of the systems, and at the end of the pilot, we asked the teachers who are using the systems what they think. And in the end, we settled on the smart 85-inch 4K Ultra HD flat panel interactive system. We also included in that RedCat near field sound system, the voice amplification for teachers in the classroom, helps students with attention, the focus, and we're also including a high definition document camera. All those came from the focus group and the survey, and we came away with this system. Now we've been deploying this. We're in our 2nd year now. In 2023 funds, we just put them in August. We put in the Buger School got all new 12 new interactive boards in each of the classrooms. There's already one from the trial, and then we put 24 more in the middle school. We're right now in the middle of soliciting a next round of purchases of these, which will be another 44, I hope, which will go into the middle school, Cutler and Winthrop. And then the proposal in FY25 is for 50 more of these devices to be installed at the high school, and that will finish the project. All in all, it's in excess of $800,000 over the 3 years. So what are we doing in FY25 for lifecycle management? We're going to be buying new devices for the middle school teachers this time. About every 4 years, we replace the devices in the teachers' hands. We will be also continuing our one-to-one at the middle school with new devices for 6th and 7th graders. New iPads will also be added to the elementary school mix. We'll be repurposing Chromebooks from the middle school down to the elementary school, and we'll be repurposing the teachers' MacBook Airs down to our ESPs rather. If you look at the lion's share of the IT budget, hardware is a big part of it, $500,000+. We're going to spend about $127,000 on student devices, $63,000 on teacher devices, and $315,000 on classroom AV. All the purchases we have making our hardware line items this coming year will go straight into the classroom. The other big lines, the other large chunk of the IT budget is our software services, software and services, I'm sorry, and I made a little correction there. We have student software. Teachers and students rely on a number of platforms to get through the day that include assessments and classroom enhancements. This makes up about $42,000 every year out of our budget. This includes things like Zoom, Edpuzzle, GitHub, Adobe Creative Suite, a few others. Can't really pick them all off the top of my head. And then we also have admin tech services and software. So this line item is much bigger. Things that go into this line item are our CRM, BudgetSense, or Tyler Technology, whatever they call it this year. We have SIS, Aspen, We have,
Final site.
what's that?
Final site.
Final Site. Those make a big lion's share of that. There's also other things in there like licensing for our firewall and our security suite. There's also licensing for, what do you call it? SALs for our servers. So if they break down, a technician will show up with a new replacement part and service that. Also for our telephone system, services for that. Those are included in that. But these aren't, and for software, this is not all the software goes into the budget. This is where the software goes into the IT budget. The IT budget covers software that is 2 or more schools, right? If there's one school happens to have, I can't think of one off, I know, like the Star Math, we're doing it at the high school. That would be covered in the high school budget, not in the IT budget. So what's next? What's next? The next big project we're thinking about, or at least trying to get a handle on, will be replacing or considering replacing our student information system. Aspen's been around for 10 years now. It hasn't changed much in those 10 years. You consider that a good thing or a bad thing. It depends how you look at it. But it's time to at least consider the process of looking at that. So we'll do a survey, see what people think, attack it, get a focus group, look at it, look where the choices are, and then tie that into a technology plan. We have other factors we got to look at for a technology plan, our life cycle, our device mix at grade level. Like, are we giving the right devices to the right kids at the right grade level? Should we mix it up? Should we change it? Should we go all to one type of device? Those things should be flushed out beyond the input of the IT department. So we're going to put together a focus group that will cover those things, and also our infrastructure plan, what that would look like in the future. With that, this should give us a look at the future. So, by and large, I think we're doing a pretty good job. I think we're doing an excellent job in keeping our network up. It's up until the power outage on Monday. We're doing way into the mid-99 percentile with uptime. And how we're being flexible and be able to change our direction and help. I think we've done a good job with all these things. I think with more input from our faculty and staff, we can, pave the path into the future. Any questions?
Thank you. Questions? Okay. Yeah, oh, go ahead.
About how many devices do you think you manage across the district?
A little over 1,400. Depends what you call a device too. So is that a device? It could be a device. If you add those in, it starts to grow. But at any one time, we have about 2,300 to 2,400 devices on our networks connected, and pulling information across our network. So a lot of people carry a lot of devices in their pockets that aren't ours, that we support still.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess that sort of brings up something that I was going to say that I think you mentioned in the last slide, or in the idea of the upcoming reviews, right? It's this idea of our high schoolers, currently, being issued iPads, when really they should probably be at MacBook, and actually in discussing that a few weeks ago, Dana brought up a really good issue, because as I'm buying, my son a MacBook, as a freshman, that it ends up becoming an equity issue, right? Because they're much easier to use, and they make a lot more sense to have at that level. And since it becomes an issue where some people, or the students rather, who need it and can afford it, then get it, and so now we're having like a have and have not situation, which is the last thing we want to be doing in our schools. So I like the fact that we're actually addressing it, and I do think it's important to get all stakeholders involved to make sure that it is the right move. I think it's the right move, but but.
Yeah, I think it's a really important issue, and that's that we really think about what the life cycle of that device is. We hand it to them in the 7th grade, it has to make it how far?
Right.
That was the outcome of COVID, trying to push more devices further down the chain. But I think you're absolutely right, that is why I want to address that. I think we need to address what's happening at the first, second, third grade, level 2, seeing what we can do within our budget too.
Yeah, I mean, when you get down to that level, then it gets a little scary about having devices in kids' hands at too young of an age, because, that can just, we're learning that can just sort of come back to haunt us, just in anything, and it's not just a problem that we have to deal with, but.
So maybe that's one of the questions has to be is, I don't think I meant one-to-one at that level.
Yeah.
I really meant that what device is in their hands at that level.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's really interesting. I like
They need some device because it's part of the daily activities.
Yeah.
But what is that and what's the best way to handle that?
Just one last thing, my kids would love it if you guys got rid of Aspen, 'cause I use Aspen at my school, and I accidentally open up their Aspen about 3 times a day, so I check their grades constantly, and oh God, do I drive them crazy. So.
Well, I mean, that's another thing, right? There are systems that we work with at the university that it's one login. Like, parents can log in, teachers can log in, students can log in, and they're all seeing similar things. Rather than going back and forth in between Google Classroom and Aspen and Moodle, and I don't know, there are like half a dozen of them.
And then they all can all merge into one, but nobody wants to learn something new, and so it's a constant battle, right?
We have a lot invested in Aspen. But as I said, when I first came, I said, this is going to be our platform for 10 years, because when you spend that much money getting, saddled up, you really can't get off the horse after just a couple steps. You got to stick with it. And I think we stick with it, but we also learned a lot in that time, and how flexible we've become, and our skill sets have grown over that time, so that, I think that a transition probably won't be that as difficult as it would have been, another change way back, 8 years ago.
Yeah.
David?
Yeah, I'd love to see, I've never seen a smart board in use. I'd love to arrange to see one in actual, just to see how it's being exploited.
Yeah, we can definitely do that.
I think we
Set
could do
something up. For anybody, we can do it, have some demonstrations done.
I always think the elementary school teachers that seem to use it the
Oh,
best.
they're unbelievable,
Like,
yeah.
they're awesome.
The kids use them too. I mean, the way they're set up in the classrooms, they're kid height, so everybody kind of understands how to use them now. The interactivity is actually really cool at the elementary, middle, and high school levels. So once we start to deploy them deeper into the secondary, you'll start to see more things happening as well.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd be very interested.
Jen?
So I love the idea of the review of the student information systems. I would like to add in, because it looks like students are going from Chromebooks to Apple, that we're making sure that that transition is happening at I don't want to say I think I do want to say like at a developmentally appropriate age, like that we're not throwing too much on them when they're making the transition from 5th grade to 6th grade. So not only do you have to transition to a new school, but now you have to transition to a whole new different type of technology that you have no experience using, or so I just would like people to keep that,
So
when we
currently
do
at
those
the-
discussion boards, keep that in mind.
At the elementary schools, the students come away with both the skills of ability to use an iPad, which isn't that difficult, and also a Chromebook. And then they come into the middle school and they use a Chromebook for a year, and they move the iPad, which right now is sticking with them from that point on. But, we have to look and see what really works best for everybody.
Yeah, I agree.
We've shimmed a lot of things in the elementary schools to make it easy for kids to log on to keep, while maintaining some level of security, using clever badges, which are QR codes. The kid just flashes in front of the device and it logs them in, and now they're moving through from system to system, or from platform to platform within the web-based area. So that makes it easier. When they get to the middle school, that goes away, but they have more skills by then, learn how to use it.
And don't get me wrong, I love tablets, but I'm seeing college students who don't know how to use a computer.
Same.
Because all they see through middle school and high school is tablets. And then, like, they have no clue, like, how to do folder structure or, like, shortcuts or anything like that.
I'm finding the same thing. I teach graphic design at the college level, and I have to teach students how to save documents, like just sort of the overall computing structure that we're all used to. And so I'm wondering if there's opportunities within, I'm guessing within like our specific programs, like graphic design in high school, they would use different machines, I'm assuming, for software purposes, but I'm hoping all of our students get an opportunity to use a more traditional operating system.
I think that's part of being so web-based, everything, is that, you can go onto a website and edit a photo, and it just saves it right there for you.
Yeah.
But there is if you're gonna work in a real world, you have to be able to manage your files and collate them and send them off to somebody. And that's, understanding those nuances of it should be something that we teach.
I'm sorry to jump on your.
No,
but
no, like I said,
Those college teachers.
well, and like I had to teach my kids in a couple of courses some advanced statistics, and they have no idea how to navigate around a computer to do that. Like I spend 2 weeks just going through computer navigation before I can even get into coding.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Alan.
Thanks, Alan.
Thing I do want to throw out there about Alan and his team, that he didn't say in this presentation, and that we do spend a significant amount of money on, is securing our systems.
Yeah.
We don't advertise a lot about it, but there is a lot going on behind the scenes, so that we hopefully don't have requests for $1 million in Bitcoin to unlock our systems. So there are a lot of things that are happening with Alan and his team and within their expertise that none of us would understand, that really help to secure our systems across the entire district every single day. And the uptime is incredible here. I give them always a hard time because my signal will go out and I'll text Alan and be like, I can't get on. And he'll say, well, it's you. Yeah. So it's a testament to the team for the work that they're doing behind the scenes, as well as, what they're showing right up front. So thank you, Alan.
We're very fortunate.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
I will shift to athletics.
Now, we'll move on to athletics. Craig, when you are ready.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for having me here tonight to present what we believe is what's necessary for the FY25 athletic budget. Gonna just start quickly with the brief recap of last year. Last meeting, we were able to recognize our fall athletes, so you know what we did last fall. Last year, for the third time in 4 years, the athletic department won the Cape Ann League's Highland Award, which is the award for overall excellence in an athletic department across the league. It takes into account participation, community service, sportsmanship, academics, and then at a varsity level, how well your teams do in the league. It's the third time in 4 years we've won that. We continue to offer 29 varsity sports. That's more than almost any team, almost any school in the area. I think only Masconomet, which is maybe 2.5 times the size of us, offers more. So we continue to offer programming across a wide variety of sports. We continue to have the highest participation rate in the Cape Ann League, 78%. That means approximately 4 out of every 5 kids in the high school play at least one sport. It's pretty astronomical. We and we do well academically and sportsmanship-wise and in the league, and we have some great coaches and great athletes that help make that happen. So it was a good year last year, and I would say we're on pace to have a similar year this year. We're looking forward to the remainder of the winter and the spring. I know there's maybe a new school committee member or two, a school committee member-elect. Congratulations. I always like to say this at the budget meeting because we have to understand why we're doing this. No one will ever say that athletics is more important than academics. You'll never hear me saying that. You'll never hear one of my coaches saying that. But we are the most visible part of the school district. You ask, I live in Amesbury, you go to Manchester, Essex, or Ipswich, or any surrounding community, and the first thing that most people know about it at Hamilton Wenham Regional High School is their athletic program. That's true of all of our high schools. We host about 250 athletic contests per year. We travel to about 350 athletic contests per year and 180 school day calendar. So if you start thinking about that, that's pretty, sometimes there'll be a school field trip in school, and it's a big deal and all this stuff. We're doing that 350 times a year. So just for some perspective. Of the 352 unique athletes in our athletic program last year, that makes up 1 in 5 of the school district students. So, from a numbers perspective, we like data. I know Jen likes data, so I like to throw these numbers in just for her. Just to give you a sense of the fact that, athletics will always be secondary to academics, but there's a lot of our students that do it and care about it, and families that care about it, so that's why we're doing this. We like to say there's a second school day that happens every day starting at 3 o'clock, where we're teaching 21st century things like outcome-based learning, collaboration, accountability, resilience, creativity within structure, and that's happening on weekends, it's happening on school vacations, it's happening the entire year. So we like to share these things just because we don't, it's not 40 years ago and we're just screaming about wins and losses. We like to win on a varsity level, but there's more to it than that, and we're aware of that and know that more goes into it. From an overall viewpoint, this budget maintains a district user fee contribution of 50% at the moment. It considers additional costs and offsets for a completed field school project, targeting the spring of 2025 being on it at the moment. It adds a varsity assistant coach for sports that don't currently have one. It increases our uniform budget. Those last 3 bullets are what I'm going to focus on here in the next 3 slides, so dig a little deeper into that. The first one is considering additional costs and offsets for a completed field project. It considers costs for additional road games and off-site practices in the fall of 2024, because we won't have anything on site. And then it considers costs and offsets associated with nighttime practices and games going forward, both in the spring of 2025 and then beyond that, particularly in these 3 areas: athletic trainer coverage, game management, and improved maintenance of existing grass fields. Before you think I'm crazy and ask me why I'm talking about grass fields, that's because 12 years ago, when I was fortunate to start at Hamilton Wenham High School and this project was already a year old, the goal at that time was to bring as many school teams back on campus as possible and to return our town fields to their originally intended use by getting a good portion of youth teams on our field. In order to do that, we need the back grass fields to be in much better shape than they are now, because they'll get more use than they ever will, believe it or not. If we're bringing everybody back on campus, we're going to need the 2 turf fields as well as the 2 grass fields. So we need improved maintenance of those fields. Game management, with more night games comes, and potentially more ticketing and more crowd control and all that stuff, we're going to need some more people to work those games. And the biggest one here is the athletic trainer. Right now we have an athletic trainer through Harmeling PT over at Gordon. They give us about 20 to 25 hours a week, and how they structure that is by having that employee as a 40-hour employee that works 15 or 20 hours in their clinic. Going forward, we're going to need twice as much, if not more, athletic training coverage. So there's a component of just doubling the time or increasing the time considerably. But more important than that, this person is going to have to be close to full-time at our school. That's not to say that we'll employ them. I've researched, depending on how this goes, I've researched some companies that will provide you with a full-time trainer. One of the main reasons that's important is if you're now talking about a full-time employee, that employee is going to have days off. They're going to have vacation. A trainer goes on vacation because they have a right to. We have a football game or a lacrosse game or a soccer game or basketball. We need somebody there. These companies would provide you with coverage when they go away. So there won't be no per diems left for athletic trainers because you could still have 2 at once, but there'll be significantly less. And so there are companies that do that. And part of this increased, in this section, the biggest part of the increased number is the athletic trainer. This budget adds it adds an assistant varsity coach for all sports that don't currently have one. Currently, 12 sports at Hamilton Wenham have paid varsity assistants. Those sports tend to be either high-impact contact sports or sports where athletes are really spread out, such as track or swimming, stuff like that. So 15 of our varsity sports do not currently have paid varsity assistants. This budget considers having 50% of the user fee go toward that, and the district covering the other 50%, just like the current assistant coaches do now. And it would ease the burden on the sports boosters coming every season to fund varsity assistants as they do now. I wouldn't want to eliminate that, but it would certainly ease that burden and make it a lot less common than it is now. The final thing that this budget does is it increases our uniform budget. In about FY17, if it's FY16, please don't hate me, I couldn't find the exact year, but I believe it was FY17. Up until then, boosters paid for all uniforms. The district did not pay for any uniforms at that time, and it was kind of the Wild West. In FY17 or thereabouts, the district gave us $10,000 a year to buy uniforms and not on a rotating basis and not have the boosters do that. At one point, they asked us to spend $1,000 on the coaches and buy gear and all that stuff, and then that went away, but we never got really the money back. It was before Vinny and before Eric. We never really got that money back. So right now, the uniform budget is at about $8,700, $8,800 a year. Between the skyrocketing cost of things and it just being X amount of years later, right now we're turning things over to about 7 or 8 years at a clip, and that's just too long. We want to be at about 4 or 5, 4 being the goal, 5 being realistic. And so we're asking for an increase in the uniform budget so that we can turn things over a lot faster. Over the course of time, uniforms get ripped, dirty, no matter how good a coach is at it, they just go missing. So those are the 3 areas that we're really asking for significant increases, and I'm happy to take any questions on any of those topics or any topics in general that you may have.
Thank you. Questions? Jen?
Okay, how is the uniform budget allocated? Because I know there are teams that still pay for their uniforms.
Yeah, so gymnastics, as an example,
And swimming would be the other one.
and swimming tends to buy their own uniforms. The reason why is you can't give those back at the end of the year.
That is true.
Those belong to the student athletes. We try to subsidize that when we can, whether it's with swim caps or whether it just depends on the year. Sometimes there's 20 new kids, sometimes there's 5 new kids. We have absolutely, in those sports specifically, had years and individuals that would have had a hard time, so we just bought it. I don't know if I'm supposed to do that, but I did anyway, being honest. So those sports particularly, the answer to that question is because they get to keep them. They're not the schools, they're theirs. Every year when we decide who's up, we have like a running list, and we always try to balance it out between boys sports and girls sports. And if we get boys soccer, we get girls soccer. If we get girls lacrosse, we get boys lacrosse. And we try to balance it out that way as best we can. Sometimes with sports like track, it's easier to buy 7 or 8 a year rather than wait forever and buy a ton. So I don't know, did I answer your question?
Yeah, you did.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes.
With the current level of funding you have in the budget, there will not be any varsity teams that don't have assistant coaches, right?
If this got approved as is, every varsity team would have an assistant
Okay.
coach, yes.
Yep. Just want to make sure you realize that.
I love that, by the way.
I know. No, I mean, honestly,
You're the
that,
one that suggested it.
well,
I think that might
that's
be
Maybe that's why you
yeah.
love it.
that's certainly something that's been on our radar for years and
Yep.
years and years. It's just never
Well, and we've
really
had some safety
had a
issues,
champion, so it's never really seen the light of day, but we've always thought about it.
Yeah, I mean, so obviously, you know, I'm very excited about the uniforms. We had a couple phone calls earlier this year. We got big.
Ones
You
I
know,
can't
I
recall.
think, but I mean, I think it's really, really important that we're concentrating on this now, where we have this tremendous opportunity with this new stadium coming in, that, you know, we want to be drawing positive attention, and we want to be taking care of our athletes. We have, you know, all these great programs. You know, girls soccer's been off the chain the past couple of years. The tennis program, they should be celebrated. They should be, you know, going out there. They're representing us at the highest levels, and you know, we want to be out there. You know, and it's part of our sort of overall strategy to be marketing our district better, right? And you know, I think that's really, really important. You know, and I said, especially the timing, you know, with everything coming up, that, you know, I am all for this. You know, and anything that we can do to keep that going, you know, I'm all about. I know, you know, just to relate, over at my, you know, school right next door, Beverly, I actually happen to be asking, and their total enrollment in sports is lower than, like significantly lower. Their absolute total enrollment. So we have exponentially more, you know, kids involved in their schools. 1,300 students, right? So
Yeah.
about 3 times larger.
Yeah.
Right. So, and they had about, I think, 600 kids
Yep.
enroll in multiple sports. So it's pretty incredible. And, you know, growing up, you know, being in Hamilton, we always thought of Beverly as being a big sports town, and they are.
Mhm.
But, you know, we're a bigger sports town, and,
Yep.
you know, we should be definitely taking care of our student athletes like that. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you all. Have a great night.
Thank you, Craig.
Oh. All right.
Last but not least,
Staff?
we have
Go ahead.
Tom Geary with the Facilities and Maintenance.
Good evening, folks. Thank you for having me tonight to go over the FY25 budget for maintenance, facilities, and operations. So first, I like to share this slide to give context of what our maintenance and custodial team cover throughout the district. So as you see, we have 6 buildings spread across 4 campuses, 365,000 gross square feet, 93 acres, 16 FTEs to maintain it. Within these 6 buildings and 4 campuses, you have thousands of linear feet of plumbing, thousands of linear feet of electrical wire, thousands of light fixtures, ballasts, heating devices, ventilation devices throughout. So our team does a phenomenal job of keeping up with that, with the resources that are allotted to them. To give you an overview, and especially for our new members, so thank you, welcome. Our budget is scattered throughout, the operations and maintenance is scattered throughout the entire budget. So under the school categories, everybody has contracted services, both maintenance and repair, custodial supplies, and then utilities. So those are spread throughout the different responsibility centers throughout the budget, not just in the operations and maintenance section within the district's budget. So contracted services, what is that? That's usually licensed tradespeople or specialties, such as landscaping. We don't have in-house landscaping. Wastewater system management, MEP and fire protection, so mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. We need licensed personnel to do that work. Playground maintenance, pest control, and elevator service. We need to keep up with many of these maintenance items because we are required by code to have certain inspections and certifications. NFPA code 72 and 25 for fire protection systems. We have our building occupancy requirements that are governed by the state building code. We have elevator inspections, pressure vessel inspections that keep us very busy throughout the year. Our custodial supplies, each school has an allotment for custodial supplies. I do handle the procurement. The majority of that is done off of the state of Massachusetts contract. We take advantage of the economies of scale by purchasing along with other municipalities and state agencies. Also included in those custodial lines are any in-house hardware and supplies that are needed to perform repairs to keep the doors open in our district. So moving on to the next slide. For FY24, the year we're currently in, I just wanted to share some of the returns on the investment from the taxpayers. So of course we provide, as stated, our best practice and code required inspections. Also performing repairs that are unexpected. Anytime we lose heat in a building, that has to be prioritized. We want specialty contractors taking advantage of performing that work. Again, we use those state contracts to find these contractors. If anybody in their home has recently had anything that they've needed to repair, many contractors don't just come out to look at it. So we are able to take advantage of those state contracts and find the right trade for the right tradesperson for the right job. And we allow the state to handle that procurement. Granted that we are such a small district, it's been pretty successful over the last few years. We also, as I noted before, purchasing green cleaning supplies. Now, that is not just to feel good. We also, we want to purchase the right supplies so not only our students and staff are safe, but also like the employees that are using these products. We want to make sure that we're providing them with the healthiest products that they can use when they're in the trenches doing the work. Also, in the current fiscal year, you've probably noticed the upgrades to the Bucher School Gymnasium. Sanded the floor, painted the ceiling, painted the walls. It was a very successful project over the summer. We're going to follow up this spring with installing a new emergency paging system throughout, similar to what we did with the middle school and high school, where people would have the ability to access it either remotely or from a mobile phone in case of an emergency. We've also implemented a new work order and asset tracking. This is something we did in collaboration with the IT department. So now we've moved away from a legacy system that we were on to track repairs and costs. And we've recently implemented it just last month where we can drill down and track by asset and life cycle within that platform. So that's been successful. The FY25 budget that's in front of you allows us to maintain that safety, functionality, and life cycle of our learning environments, of existing infrastructure. To continue to utilize those specialized contractors off of the state contracts, continue using these green cleaning products, safe cleaning products, and our primary objective is to always keep those doors open for learning. Sure you are aware that we had a power outage at the Winthrop on Monday. With the power outage, when the power does come back on, and same for the middle school and high school and Cutler who dropped power for a little bit, we need to go back and inspect other pieces of equipment to make sure that we're ready to keep those doors open. Some of the challenges, and granted, we will always work within the resources that are allotted to us. Our buildings are not getting any newer. Our infrastructure is dated. The older the systems get, it doesn't mean that it's just going to stop working when things become end of life. It's a challenge to just predict when you're going to have failure of any of our assets. So that is always a challenge. Custodial staffing levels. We run very lean with our levels, so anytime there are absences, employee turnover, it is difficult for us to maintain the clean environments. And it's also been a challenge, not just in Hamilton Wenham, but across the Commonwealth and across the nation, to recruit people for in-house custodial service jobs. Many of my peers run into the same challenges. Very difficult to find the people to apply for the positions. Just my own opinion, I don't think it's just custodial staffing. I think you have trouble finding educational support professionals, cafeteria workers, bus drivers. That's always a challenge. Something that is coming soon, as indicated in our district goals, is a revised capital improvement plan. And what you're seeing now is just one of the first drafts of one of the lists that falls under the facilities umbrella. However, working with Assistant Superintendent Leone, we really focused on the process of capital planning. So what we'll be debuting next month is a process manual and a plan to move forward to address capital needs in the future for the district. And if any committee members have any questions, I will do my best to shed light on it. Thank you for allowing me to present.
Thank you very much. Anyone?
Yeah, so I was just gonna say, back, even though I was a designer back for Massport, I was actually a facilities department manager. It's just where the department was, and one of the last projects I took on there before I entered teaching was actually a new work order and asset tracking system, and it's like awesome. I just remember how, from you know, a managerial standpoint, it's so fantastic, especially when you have like such a small team for taking care of like so many buildings and you have so many work orders like that. But you know, it's one of those little things that sort of are hidden that people wouldn't necessarily see, and then maybe even like the people that are having to learn it, all of a sudden have to learn a new system, aren't too happy about. But you know, from you know, up at your level and where we're concerned, you know, I know exactly what that is and how that's going to be really beneficial for the entire district and really helping organize your crew and keep things running, you know, lean and smoothly as it goes over. So, you know, kudos to that. That's a heck of a task to take on. I didn't even realize you were doing that.
Yeah.
So nice,
thank you.
Nice job.
We do have a heck of an IT team, and the collaboration between our two teams is phenomenal. So we were able to launch it with very few complaints.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Wish I could say the same.
David?
I do have some questions. Can you explain what the functionality and what the value add will be of the HVAC controls upgrade? What's that directed at?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch this.
Sorry, the HVAC controls upgrade. What's the functionality of that? Is that a fix, or is it provide some additional capabilities? What?
Yep. So
elaborate?
just to give you like a very high level overview of our controls throughout the district. Controls are what tells the ventilation, the heat, and the AC. It basically tells it what to do. Thank you. Here at the Bucher School, we are still running on the same technology as when the building was open. We were run off of pneumatic air controls that tell dampers to open, that tell heating valves to open, and that's what controls the heat and that's our building automation system for the Bucher School. The same type of system is in place at the Winthrop School, very legacy system. That's an original HVAC system, and the controls are original, and they're also air pneumatic lines. It's very tough to control and very tough to get any data from that system. There is no data. It's either on, off, hot, cold. The middle school, granted, it is a more modern pneumatic air control system. The HVAC devices at the middle school are still on those pneumatic controllers. The high school was upgraded through a grant some years back. The Cutler School is also on a direct digital control system. That was put in 2011 as part of the HVAC upgrade at that building. So the reason for retrofitting to direct digital controls, or DDC, is to be able to not only control the devices, but to have monitoring capability, to go back in time and figure out, all right, why was this wing cold on this day in this room, this wing was hot, and you can drill down and see some of those issues. Of course, at the high school, we're still dealing with some legacy devices that we are controlling, so we don't have much capability of doing much with some of the infrastructure that's there. But having the controls is a way to add more building comfort and being able to drill down and monitor systems. So that would be one of the prime reasons for moving forward with control upgrades.
So given that absence of data, how do you assess from day to day the performance of the overall system and the comfort level, the ventilation, you know, all of the major parameters?
Yep. Really, what we rely on is the occupants of the building communicating that, right? So the asset and work order management system allows any staff member in the district to log any issue, whether it be heating, ventilation, air conditioning, or temperature controls, to electrical work, to even something as simple as hanging a pencil sharpener. So we rely on the people that are out in the buildings to communicate that most of the time. Where we have capability, I'm able to monitor, like after the power outage at the high school on Monday, I was able to log in remotely and make sure that key devices were running for the remainder of the school day.
But from what you say, it sounds like you don't have any way of saying all of these places are in compliance with temperature, humidity, et cetera, without the people actually calling up, basically, or logging.
That's correct.
Yeah.
We do not have that technological capability at the Bucher School, at the Winthrop School, and the middle school.
Yeah, prior to changing all the controls, have you ever considered actually putting in those parameters being monitored? Prior to being able to automate the control, there's a lower level of expenditure that could at least give you the information.
Yep. That is something I suppose would be beneficial long-term, but as I explained in my slide, we're really funded to maintain like the existing systems that we have in our school buildings. We don't really have the funding to make major infrastructure improvements. So any major infrastructure improvements would have to go through our capital planning process.
Right, which is what I thought the improvement plan was intended to start to propose for some of those, rather than just bring things back up to scratch, but propose things that would kick it up another notch. And perhaps compare where we are to the new standards that are out there, and then be able to estimate what would it take to reach those standards, because I have no idea what it would take to reach the latest ASHRAE standards, but nobody else seems to know either.
Yep. And I think that what you would find is we're going to have a lot of information coming out as part of this feasibility study with the Cutler School that would give you a general idea of order of magnitude prices for major infrastructure improvements and code upgrades. And I believe we will have that information in March, April, when we really start showing that, Eric? I think somewhere around there.
So we'll give you
That would be a good detector of, how much to anticipate to bring, not just ventilation systems, but every system, whether it's, electrical code, plumbing code. It's a costly item to retrofit a building to do code upgrades, especially while they are occupied. So.
Sure. And the only other question is that $4.5 million in for the replacement roof a result of a budgetary bid by a vendor, or is it a guesstimate?
That is an order of magnitude estimate based on square footage and what a consultant in the industry provided to me last year. I have updated numbers coming to me in the new year and a new roof report that'll be in my hands. That'll be part of our capital planning process. Also, to inform the committee, in case you're unaware, the MSBA is looking to restart the accelerated repair program that would cover roof replacement, boilers, windows, and doors. And that opens on January 12th of the new year. So they are opening that program back up, which is very exciting for us because our roof is only getting older and tougher to maintain.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay, other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you,
Much
folks.
appreciated.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you, Tom. Thanks, Tom.
All right, next is the NEC annual report. I think that's to you, Eric.
Yes, and this is just informational. As the superintendent, I am automatically a member of the 20-member board of directors for the NEC. Because we're members of the Northeast Consortium, it is a group of schools that basically manages higher end or higher difficulty or higher complexity special education programming for students that cannot stay in local school districts at the school level. So we have anywhere between 5 and 15 students in the consortium at any one time. It fluctuates through the year where kids either may just get put in, and January we may put a student in to one of their programs, and we may have some kids age out on their birthday in March and April. So these programs really cover a wide range from kids that are on the autism spectrum, medically fragile, super behavioral issues. They really cover the gamut of opportunity for kids that don't necessarily have these opportunities within the regular public school system. So out-of-district placements, basically, in a nutshell. This is just their annual report from last year. They just sent it out, completed it, just got voted. So they ask us to just make sure that committee members have it. In it is a description of each of their programs, which is actually, if you've never seen it, it's fascinating, and also some of their cost structures, which will be changing next year, we've been told, because they're doing a giant HVAC project, $15 million project within their building over in Beverly. So just for everyone's purview. But if you do have questions after you read it, feel free to reach out, and if I don't have an answer, I can get it from one of my fellow board members.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Now, Vinny.
All right.
Yeah, me? Yeah, you just said-
Unless anyone has any questions already. Okay. All right. Vinny's going to update us on the budget process.
It's going.
Tonight, I am here to present to you an update to our initial budget request. I am fighting a little bit of a cold here, so hopefully I don't have a coughing fit. But the way I set this budget up is to show you two different ways. The first way is what are the changes between the budget we presented, I believe, about a month ago, compared to tonight, and then in addition, wrap it together with all other changes and what is the year-over-year difference. So you'll see that pattern repeated throughout the presentation. So what have we done since our last budget presentation about a month ago? We went through a thorough review of all of our supplies and material accounts and contracted services at the 5 individual schools. So if you recall, our FY23 year-end closeout, as well as our FY22, we had a pretty big residual balance at the end of the year. A lot of it had to do with unspent salaries, but another portion of it was unspent supplies and materials at the 5 schools. So we met with all 5 principals and went through line by line and compared what their original FY25 budget request was, where they ended FY23, and how are they panning out for FY24. For all 5 buildings, we were able to reduce a small portion of their supplies and materials. So hopefully year over year, that'll help with our year-end balance and get us closer to our goal of about a 2% balance at the end of the year. In addition, for the first time since I've been here, the Department of Revenue certified our E&D balance before February. So I was going back and forth with them for pretty much the month of November, answering any questions they had, and they certified it a good 3 months ahead of time. So I've worked in the changes as it results to our E&D certification. In addition, we performed a staffing review at all levels. So again, we met with all the principals and reviewed their staffing and forecasted out our student population into FY25 and how that aligns with our FTEs. One thing you will notice here, and we've discussed before, is our enrollment at the secondary level is kind of maintaining or dropping just a little bit, that I'll go into in a moment, but our elementary is climbing. So what we tried to do was rework some of our FTEs and move some positions that are at the secondary level and put them down at the elementary level that we'll go into in a couple minutes. In addition, we started our phased-in approach to reduce our prepaid tuitions. For those of you who are on the committee, last year I presented kind of a phase-in approach to slowly reduce the roughly $1.1 million in prepaid tuitions, and then use that to slowly reduce the $770,000 in E&D that we had left over from Chapter 70 during the COVID era. So we have started that in our updated budget that we will get into in a moment as well. As of December 1st, our teachers' collective bargain agreement has a deadline for salary scale advancements. That's any teachers that plan on hiring their education and moving along the columns. To be completely honest, while we sent out the email alerting everyone and reminding them of the December 1st deadline, we merged an Excel file with emails to Outlook, and for whatever reason, it cut off the bottom 15 emails. So we are allowing those teachers to have a new deadline of tomorrow. So the updated budget that we might present in January might incorporate a few more salary scale advancements depending on whether those teachers in fact do apply. But as of right now, this budget, the budget you'll see tonight incorporates 27 salary scale advancements that cost roughly $80,000 spread out across the district. The last update we're going to review tonight is our technology software and hardware review. So one thing I've noticed while being in this position is originally a lot of our technology software and hardware was being charged off to an instructional line when really it was administration. You'll notice that probably the past 2 or 3 budget cycles, there's some sort of reclassification from our instructional software to our administrative software. I believe this was the 3rd year in a row it happened, so to be honest, I got a little fed up. I took Alan's budget and basically tipped it over and said, we're going through absolutely every item you have on here and reclassing it wherever it has to go, so this process doesn't happen again next year, so you will see some changes in his DAC as well as the administration. So as you'll see when I get to the Winthrop School, we are anticipating a reduction in our preschool enrollment. And I'll go over it a little bit more when we get to the Winthrop. So we are anticipating we do not need the third pre-K classroom that we added into the budget this year. As a result of removing that third pre-K classroom, we also have to remove our revenues related to taking in tuition from that third program. So we have changes in some of our revenues compared to the initial budget that we presented last month. In addition to a reduction in preschool tuition, there is the E&D that I mentioned before. The DOR had certified it about $49,000 above what I had originally estimated. So these two items together are resulting in an increase to our overall offsets and revenues by $19,000 as you compare that to our initial budget request. So what does that mean year over year? Year over year for our offsets and revenues, we are seeing a reduction of $494,000, which represents approximately 5%. But my pointer died. It's, as you recall, it's the E&D at the bottom. The reduction of approximately $870,000 is really driving that overall reduction from year to year. If you exclude the one-time offsets from E&D, the one-time revenue of E&D, we're actually seeing revenue grow at about $370,000, which is a very good pace for us compared to prior years. So in addition to our changes in revenues, we also have changes to items inside our levy limit and outside our levy limit. In terms of our operating budget expenses, from our initial budget request to this update, we are reducing our overall budget request by $125,000, which represents a 0.3 decrease from that initial budget request. So what does that mean year over year when you incorporate and compare the updated budget tonight to our approved FY24 budget? We are asking for an increase to our budget year over year of $603,000, which represents a 1.37% increase inside the levy limit.
Can I jump in there for a second?
Of course.
Can you go back to that slide? I want to highlight this slide because that's the actual increase to the budget, 1.37%. People will often say, oh, what's 3 for this and 4 for this, depending on the towns, but our overall budget has gone up 1.37%. I think that's important for people to keep in mind. Now, the revenue adjustments and the E&D offsets will change how the ultimate figures come out year over year, but from last year to this year, we have a 1.4% increase. I just want to make sure people, right, that's somewhat unheard of in the budgeting. So just want people to understand that. There are a number of budget waves coming at us in the near future with negotiations and cost increases down the road. So we are trying to brace for that early rather than dealing with it later and having to chop us all up. So thank you, Vinny, for getting us there.
Yep. So one more item that did change inside the levy limit relates to our debt service. After our quintuple board meeting, I met with Wendy from Hamilton, and to be honest, I forget the new Wenham Finance, Jeff in Wenham, to go over all of our debt service projects and verify which ones were voted as debt exclusions and which ones were not. I had notes left over from the previous projects that I incorporated in our initial budget, but after conversations with them, they felt that they wanted to go back and verify what was actually voted as a debt exclusion and what was not. What we found is that the Winthrop sprinkler system was not voted as a debt exclusion for just Hamilton again, just like Hamilton did not vote the Cutler feasibility study as a debt exclusion. So this chart just compares our initial budget request from last month to the updated one that just simply adds the $89,000 for the Winthrop sprinkler project as being an item inside the levy limit instead of outside. So take those same numbers and compare them year over year. It means that Hamilton is going to see an increase of $30,000 year over year in their debt service payment to the regional district inside the levy limit. Moving on, because we moved an item from outside the levy limit to the inside, and we just went over it, now that same change is happening to outside the levy limit. You can see the original $89,000 is present last month, and now it's being removed this month, resulting in a difference from our initial of the same amount opposite of the other one. So then rolling that out year over year, we're seeing a overall increase in our debt service outside the levy limit, combining both towns of $1.5 million. Like I had mentioned before, 1.525 is from the athletic complex alone, so this is where the majority of our increase in debt service outside the levy limit is coming from. So what does that mean for our final assessment when you combine all items inside the levy limit and all items outside the levy limit? You can see from our initial budget request in November to our updated budget request now, we are reducing our overall assessment to the towns by $143,000, which shows a reduction of 0.4%. So taking that and comparing it year over year, just like we have been throughout the project, through the presentation, our total operating budget from FY24 to our updated initial budget request, we are asking for an increase of $1.1 million, or roughly 3.2%, again for our operating budget. And for our debt service, we are asking for an increase of $1.57 million for a total combined increase year over year of 7.66%. So I'll stop there and ask if you guys have any questions while I take a sip, and then we can dive into what made up that $140,000 difference. But if you're good, I'll keep going. So like I mentioned before, we went through every single supplies line item, supplies and materials across many different DESI budget functions. So you'll see kind of the same reductions throughout this presentation. I'm obviously not going to go through every one of them, but overall for Bucher, we are seeing a reduction in their supplies and materials of roughly $12,000. In addition, we have increases because of the salary scale advancement deadline of December 1st. One item that I am going to go over now is our initial budget request. We had a 1.0 FTE teacher, library teacher, budgeted at the Cutler Elementary School. Then we had a 0.6 FTE library ESP at Bucher, and a 1.6 library ESP at Winthrop. After our staffing reviews, we really needed to put more resources in our library. So at this time, we're requesting that we trade in the 2.6 FTE library ESPs and get a 1.0 library teacher. That way there will be a total of 2.0 library teachers spread across the 3 elementary schools. That translates into a 0.66 FTE at each of the 3 elementary schools. But like I just said, our initial budget, there was a 1.0 at Cutler. So when we get to Cutler, you're gonna actually see a reduction of 0.33. That's being moved off to Cutler and Winthrop. That amounted to an increase of $44,000 for that teacher, which again is being offset by the reduction of $21,000 for the removal of the library ESP.
Also a reminder, this is step 2 of a step we took back in October by adding the librarian to the Cutler School for now. Adding the second librarian in, and all of our specials, music, art, things run with 2 adults. So now that puts 2 library teachers that can cover all 3 of the elementary libraries for next year.
So moving on from Bucher to Cutler, we are asking an increase from our initial budget request of $54,000. A good chunk of this falls within our teachers DESI category. So what we have what we have seen over the past 4 budget cycles is increased enrollment at the elementary level. That has caused a 7th kindergarten teacher to be placed in the budget every year for the past 4 years. When that started to happen, I reminded the committee that that's going to follow through for every single budget cycle until we eventually have 7 teachers in every single grade. So you can see that our enrollment is increasing at the elementary level, and because of that, we need to add a teacher for the grade school bubble every single year. This will be the last year that we have to add an additional bubble teacher, because after FY25, there'll be 7 in every single grade. If we need any more than that, we're going to have to rent space somewhere.
Vinny's doing it.
Yeah.
Teaching kindergarten next year.
So with our staffing reviews, we really tried to find an FTE somewhere else to help support this at the elementary level, but we couldn't. So one thing I wanted to stop and go over is at the end of this presentation, we have a lot of movement, but at the elementary level, we're overall seeing an increase of 2.6 FTEs, while at the secondary level, we're seeing a reduction of 3.2. So we really try to utilize those positions at the secondary level where enrollment has stayed steady or dropped to help our increased enrollment at the elementary level. Year over year, our elementary enrollment, based on our October 1 report, went up 13 students, while our secondary enrollment went down 1 student. So every year we're trying to help out the elementary schools.
Will that swap mostly be people in the secondary level who decide to transfer down to the elementary level?
Not necessarily.
Yep. It'll depend on their certification.
Yeah, it depends on their certifications. If they're qualified and certified, they certainly would have the opportunity to apply for those jobs, but in most cases, probably not. It's not impossible. I mean, I know of a high school teacher who has an elementary cert, so that it's not impossible, but we would certainly give those people the option. It's just like the preschool. Preschool gets kind of turned off and on every year. That teacher generally fills one of the bubble slots and then comes back when we need it back. You know what I mean? So she's certified across that domain, but it's often difficult when you're removing teachers from, say, the high school. They don't often have an elementary cert, but if they do, we certainly would put them in the mix. Try to keep people here where we can.
Yeah, checking.
And as we know, the secondary, you know, I go back to the enrollment reports I showed earlier in the year, in October, I believe, or November. They have some very small, extremely small class sizes, you know, where there's probably more than 20 classes under 8 kids at the high school. That's not, you know, when I have 21 and 22 kindergarten students in a classroom, first graders, second graders, that's a fairly big disparity. So it's probably going to continue to happen. We've seen, we're up to, I think, 845 elementary level kids, preschool to 5th grade. There's no sign of stopping right now. You know, the highest we've ever been is 867, and that was just around 2019, just pre-COVID. We're now at the second highest we've ever been, and this building is packed to the gills, and Winthrop is packed to the gills. They have a little more play over at Cutler for maybe another classroom or 2, but it's going to be dicey as we move forward. So,
Thank you.
So just to wrap up Cutler, I just want to point out the reduction of the .3 library teacher, as I mentioned with Bucher's slide. So here at the Winthrop, we have a little bit more activity going on. There was a request from our Director of Student Services. She has noticed with the increase in enrollment, there is also an increase in services that need to be provided to our TLC classroom. So we are requesting tonight to add an additional 1.0 FTE TLC special education teacher for FY25 at the Winthrop Elementary School. To offset some of that is the reduction of the 3rd pre-K classroom and the reduction of the 1.0 special education preschool teacher, resulting in a net increase of about $30,000 when you look at just the internal move there. For our other teaching services, we do have the addition of the .6 library teacher, as well as the reduction of the .6 library ESP. In addition, we have the reduction of 1.5 preschool ESPs because of the closing of that third classroom. Each classroom has 3 adults, 1 teacher, 2 TAs, so we're able to reallocate some of those bodies or eliminate them for our FY25 budget request. I think everything else is salary scale advancement or the supplies and materials. Now you will get into a few of the reductions at the secondary level to help out the growing enrollment at the elementary level. So overall, for the Miles River Middle School, we are requesting a reduction of approximately $70,000. This is just a general 1.0 reduction of a classroom teacher. We haven't identified it. We're going to work through this year and determine that later in the year. But again, we're utilizing this as well as the FT at the high school, you will see in a moment, to pay for the elementary increases. In addition, we did get a request from Zach Best to help out with the DC field trip. He's noticed this year that he has been hit with a lot of requests to help fund the field trip. So we are going to try, with your approval, to put aside roughly $3,700 to help subsidize some of the DC field trips so more students can attend. At the regional high school, we are seeing a reduction of approximately $120,000, comparing our initial budget request to our updated budget request. Here, the main reduction is in the teachers category. Again, here we have a total reduction of 1.85, which is a reduction of a 1.6 classroom teacher, as well as a 0.25 ESL teacher. The other items here, again, are reductions to our instructional materials or increases to our salary scale advancements. It's the same thing continuing on with the high school, just with guidance. That is definitely a typo on the 33,000. That should read negative, that should read 3,000. I think I have an extra 3 right there. For the central office is where we have the reclassification of our tech software. You'll see the exact opposite reduction in tech once we get to it. This was just the reallocation of the phone system and some wiring that needs to be done for the new projectors that was originally budgeted as kind of instructional devices. For our benefits and fixed charges, we are requesting a substantial increase compared to our initial budget. The bulk of this is the increase of our 3 elementary school level teachers. So our TLC teacher, our elementary library teacher that'll be split amongst all 3, and the new Cutler grade school bubble. We are being cautious and budgeting out benefits for all those individuals. Also, in addition, we're seeing an increase to our OPEB. So as I mentioned on the first slide, our E&D was certified at roughly $49,000 above what we anticipated. We took that $49,000 number and just split it in half. We put half in OPEB and half in the capital stabilization transfer that I think is on the very next slide. Yep. So just split the increase and put it in both buckets. In terms of special education, we are seeing a reduction of 190. I think I skipped one thing at Winthrop that I'll go over right now. We have a PT teacher who is retiring at the end of this year. They are currently a 0.8 FTE, but they oversee our physical therapist TA, because our physical therapist TA is not completely certified, so she has to oversee her. With her retirement, we are nervous that the new person who comes in will not hold that certification and not be able to oversee our PT assistant. So what we're doing here is reducing our part-time 0.6 PT assistant, but increasing our physical therapist teacher at the Winthrop School that I did not point out, so I'm just gonna go back to it so you see that it is there. The additional 0.2, so that'll make them a 1.0 full-time, so the two do offset each other.
Just to be clear, realistically, we're making a 0.8 physical therapist into a 1.0 for hiring purposes. There are not a lot of physical therapists who come and looking for a part-time job, so we want to make the opportunity, the ability to entice somebody to actually apply for the job. It's tough to hire physical therapists at the school level because they can make much more money outside in outside practices.
So in addition to the physical therapist, we, again, like I mentioned in the beginning, we are utilizing $156,000 in a tuition reduction to offset some of our prepaid tuitions. This really is kind of the safe zone that I think of. We had a prepaid amount last year of roughly, I believe, 1.1 million. This will drop it down to roughly $1 million. The goal is over a slow period of time to get it down to that $773,000 number, and then use our prepaid tuitions to ultimately reduce that huge influx of E&D to the towns. Because at some point, we will not end the year with a huge E&D balance, and that 773 will pass on to the communities. So my goal is to utilize our prepaid tuitions to kind of spread that out over like a 4 or 5 year period, so it's not as big of an impact year over year.
It also deflects the budget. When you look at something like that, if you suddenly reduce $350,000 out of your budget, that deflects to the next year. So all of a sudden, your increase is actually much higher than it really would be, because just, you know, for basic accounting, as Vinny always says, whatever I have here, I have the opposite here. It's the same thing. So we show a big reduction, which would widen the gap for the following year on the year-over-year calculations.
Yeah, and the reason we aren't comfortable going higher, because like you said, we have to make up that 150 next year.
Yeah.
So you really don't want to make it too much unless it was an absolute emergency. We feel that that's a comfortable level that we can kind of step in the decrease over the next few budget cycles. So here at the technology, we are seeing a reduction of $63,000. Ultimately, it was a reclassification of a lot of our expenses, like I had mentioned, the $44,000 for the reclassification of what was previously reported as instructional software that should have been administrative software. In addition, we have reclassifications of the copier maintenance that was charged to instructional materials and should have went to instructional leadership, as well as the $4,000 reclass of the wiring for the smart boards.
Vinny, can you stop 1 second?
Yep.
Thank you. So we have it's just that it's 10 o'clock,
Oh,
and
yeah,
we
yeah,
have a really,
I'll be glad to stop my throat.
really clear policy. So if, Jen, are you willing to make a motion so that we can vote on whether or not to continue?
Until,
Up to 10:30 would be the,
I move that we continue the meeting until 10:30 PM, at which case we pause to reconsider, or to consider staying longer.
Wow, that was, sorry, second.
seconded by Amy. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? That is 3 in favor, 4 in favor. All those opposed? All right, looks like we got 3 in favor and 1 abstention.
That would be accurate, yeah.
Okay, all right, and the motion passes. All right.
4.
Oh, I'm sorry, 4 in favor and 1 abstention, correct.
Roll 1.
All right, the motion passes. Continue on, Vinny.
So just to bring it all back, we rolled through the difference in revenues and we rolled through the difference in expenses. So bring it back to the total assessment to the towns year over year. Inside the levy limit, we are asking for an increase of $1.1 million, which represents an overall increase of 3.28%. This is our DESI category chart. That is the numbers you approve for our budget cycle. You can see year over year, our net result is a reduction of 4.18 FTEs. I broke it down into kind of 3 different levels. You have the elementary FTEs going up 2.66. We have the secondary FTEs going down 3.2, and we have total district-wide administration going down 3.64, which ends our reduction of 4.18 FTEs. This is that same chart, just based on the DAC and spread out by building. So just the last thing to go over before I answer any questions is our future dates. At our next school committee meeting, we are going to ask you to vote in a tentative budget. I do have one question after I go through the other items. Then following that, on January 10th, we'll have the chairs only quintuple board meeting. 8 days after that, we'll hold our first public hearing on the budget at our January 18th school committee meeting. And then on January 30th, we'll hold our second and final quintuple board meeting in this room. And then finally, we will vote on a final budget and hold our second budget hearing on February 8th. So one question I do have for you guys before you maybe ask me any questions is there has already been updates to this budget by the time I posted this to right now. So my question is, I didn't introduce them tonight because I didn't have time to get them on the presentation. So do you want me to introduce them before you vote on the tentative, or would you like me to just roll forward with this and then bring the changes to the next budgets in the next meeting on January 18th? No difference to me.
I just want to make sure I understand the question. So you're saying on the 4th, you could, at that meeting, present just the changes?
Correct. Which you would then
and then we would vote on them in
it.
one meeting?
It would be the same meeting. You wouldn't have
Right.
much time to think
Right,
about
yep.
it.
No, I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
Yep, okay. Thoughts?
I'd like to see, like, our final to date before we vote on it.
Okay,
if
so put the
possible.
updates in, and
Please.
we'll go with those numbers for the tentative. Yep, that's fine. Didn't want to
Do other
Yeah,
people?
there will
Make you
be
vote
some
on it.
more reductions. I mean, we're still literally
I know,
going
you guys work,
backwards through
'cause-
stuff. We're going to next week's vacation, but Vinny and I are going to chip away at some things next week, and it's got to be posted. Like, we literally come back from vacation and have a meeting, so
Right.
there will be some changes.
Essex,
Reductions.
yeah.
There'll be reductions.
I just want to, I agree with what Jen said. I'd like to see it, but I also want to make sure that everyone feels comfortable that it is true that it would be all in one meeting, so.
Yeah, I didn't want to assume
Yeah.
you wanted to vote on
Okay.
it this same day.
Yep, it looks like
do
you've
it.
got consensus on that. Yep.
Please.
Sounds good. Thank you, guys. If you have any questions,
Okay, questions for Vinny?
answer them.
I had one quick question, I'm sorry.
Yep.
On the preschool classroom, so that was unexpected this year that we had to jump up to the 3rd classroom, correct?
Correct. We did not.
When did we know that this year? Because I understand we're anticipating that the norm has been the 2, and so we're anticipating taking that classroom out, but
At what time frame did we know this
like
year?
when
that
did we know
needed
this year that we needed to bump that
I
back up?
believe it was in September.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
right at the
I
end
mean,
of
I
September.
was going to guess August. I thought it was pretty
Yeah, it was right at the
late,
Yeah.
beginning of the year.
right? So we're not going to know, really.
It's hard to know because there are
Yeah.
the same factors in,
Right.
we
No,
don't have control of the kids that are not 3.
Yeah, no,
So as
I
soon
totally
as-
understand. I
as soon as
just
a child
wondered.
turns 3. The other issue is the disability factor. Our preschools are really model-based programs, so there's that, the kids with disabilities coming in, we generally know they are coming. At 2 years, 9 months, we start to get information from Head Start, and that's kind of our heads up. The other 8, we don't know. It's just whoever applies at that point in time. Applications go up and down throughout the school year, so. And then there are some legal requirements,
Yep.
which kids we have to take, which kids we can take and can't take. So it's a bit of a messy game for a preschool, but it'll fluctuate again over
Yep.
the next year or two.
I understand we have to make a decision, but there's a part of me that wonders, given the continued increase in elementary, it seems like that might be a trend.
Share my concern.
Yeah.
Yeah, we talk about it a lot. I mean, right now, we have eight slots open that we can't fill
Right.
in the current preschool, so it's like, okay, where's that line?
Those are for the typical peers.
Yeah. And then we know that we have kids coming out of the 4-year-old group that are severe needs. We have at least 3, and that was the extra TLC teacher you saw in there. We know we're going to need, just to cover those IEPs, that particular person. So it'll either be a TLC or an ILP, depending on how those kids end up getting structured in kindergarten. So, which is unusual, getting that many at once in a kindergarten level. So.
Thank you. All right.
Good.
Yeah, turn all the lights back
All
on.
right, thank you, Jen, for doing that.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Vinny.
All right. All right, let's make some good time here. All right. Huh?
Nothing.
Capital Finance, I think, you didn't meet yesterday, correct?
Correct.
Right.
Okay.
We didn't have a,
Yep.
No problem.
Policy. January 8th, so just right after our next meeting, correct? Okay. Negotiations, we are meeting, David?
I'm about to sneeze. You can take it.
It's from Vinny.
yeah.
You get me sick then.
Do you need me to pass you a cough drop also?
Perfect timing.
So we met for the first time last week?
Can you talk into your mic? I can't hear.
I'm trying to think.
Yeah, we met last
So we
week.
met last week, and we have the next few dates set, and we'll meet again for the second meeting in beginning of January.
Yep. With the office personnel. Yep. Okay, we unfortunately don't have our secretary report because our secretary is not here. But we will get one to find out where everybody is on their minutes. But I think I think we're moving in the right direction on that. Eric, the superintendent's report.
I don't have a ton leading into vacation, but I do want to thank our arts departments for their concerts and art shows over the last few weeks. Always a fun time of the year. It's still always amazing to me to go to plays and musical events and see what kids can do in the different grade levels and watch them kind of grow. I go all the way back to the play where I was able to see kids that were there for my final year as principal, and now in their senior year, and how far they've come. It's always been fascinating for me to watch that and fun. And the same with the concerts. You watch these kids grow through the years. The beauty of my position is now I get to see them K to 12, which is even more fun. But congratulations to everyone for some wonderful concerts. I think there's one more tomorrow here at the Bucher. So I'm looking forward to that. And then I just want to wish everybody a happy holiday, and hopefully people get to rest and relax. I know our teachers are looking forward to taking a step back and 3 deep breaths and relaxing. So they've done amazing work in the past week with the wind and rain on Monday, taking down the power and readjusting our days and making it just generally messy, to having to go in, yesterday with no heat in the winter for the first hour and a half. So really appreciate the work the teachers do leading up to vacation. No other job sees a ramp up in energy like teaching does around the holidays. The energy goes flying through the roof as kids, as we get closer to these vacations and holidays. So we really appreciate the staff across the board for hanging in there and keeping it together. And I hope they all get to take some time and enjoy families and friends in the holidays next week. So thank you, and happy holidays to everybody.
Okay. thank you for that. Questions? Okay. So for the chair's report, I really am just going to highlight, Vinny did highlight some of these, and I'm going to just highlight some dates for everyone. A couple of things I want to make sure everybody is aware of is that the January 18th, which is a budget hearing, public budget hearing, and January 30th, which is the quintuple board meeting, and February 8th, which is also a budget hearing, are all 6:30 start times. So if you guys could all, I'll send out an email, but just get that in your calendars and make sure that you have that. And I just don't know whether, I'm concerned that I didn't necessarily communicate that. I think you all have those dates in your calendars, but I want to make sure that you have the 6:30 start time. Janelle alerted me to that when she was going to put out the information for the public.
All the next agendas.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say that. And then I should have said it when Alan was here, but I just wanted to say thank you to Amy, did alert me to some spam email, and she reminded me that you all apparently still occasionally get emails from me asking you to go buy gift cards, and I just, bravo to all of you for not buying any gift cards. I will never ask you to buy a gift card, any of you, ever. So.
There's one I get every now and again that says, can you do a call now?
Yeah.
I just got that one
Oh.
Tuesday. Yeah, I got that one Tuesday.
From me,
Yep,
but it's
from
not
you.
my email, right? Yeah, right, it's not me, yep.
Look at the email
So-
address behind it, it's not.
Yeah.
We fish them out.
How much spare time you have, it can be quite amusing to like throw them for a loop.
Yeah, well, I don't get them. I don't receive them. All of you just get the joy of receiving them. So anyway, so thank you for
As long as it's not linked.
being on top of it. All right, topics for future meetings, or unless anyone had any questions for me? Okay. Topics for future meetings. We did, just so you know, you were not here, so we did table the Roberts Rules conversation, and my thoughts are, now that we are going to have a new member, it might make sense to have that after Trent gets on board and started a bit, is my thought.
He knows Robert's rules.
Yeah, so we can talk about that.
Me, actually.
no.
Anybody else have any other topics for future meetings? Okay. Unless there's anything else,
I'd like to move a motion.
yes, what is it?
Adjourn.
Do we have a-
Second.
Shock and surprise.
And a second by Jen Carr. Is there any discussion?
No.
All right, all those in favor? We are adjourned. Oh, that one is not going to help.